time is now 6:19. Um, is there not enough seats? Are we okay? Okay. They want to hide in the corner. All right, the time is now 6:20. If you would like to speak, you're welcome to do so. You just sign up with City Secretary Ann, and she'll make sure you get to speak.
Hi. Good. You? Hey, Josh.
Are you going to operate that?
Sure, I can do that.
All right. And you can tell us when it doesn't, my iPad, we've discovered, doesn't have a good, the speaker doesn't work. Can you see this okay? You can't? No, we're going to use this. Yeah, I need you to follow this though, if you would, and then when it goes to 0, just say time, because the speaker, it doesn't, the alarm doesn't. Anyway,
Maybe you're staying all night or we're kicking you out early.
It's up to you guys, but it would not break my heart if I got kicked out early. I mean,
we're thinking item 1 and 2, I think.
What are you here for? Here for the
Item 1 and 2.
Still pretty early.
Yeah, you won't be here that long.
famous.
Simeon?
Yeah, you need to get him on. It's on
One
his
or
phone.
two, you can leave then. I was gonna put the auditor up front so she didn't have to sit all the time.
No, I asked her to come later.
Yeah, you're more expensive than she is.
Yeah, I explained, I thought, yeah.
You should load your face into it.
She's going to come a little later because of
I
that.
just hated for her to have to sit through the whole meeting.
And she said she didn't mind even, so.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike. We never got updates on the K5.
No, I'll have to speak to that, yeah. He said he couldn't. He said he couldn't do it.
No. Didn't have time to do the estimate?
No.
No. No, it was kind of short notice.
No, it wasn't that.
No. You say the other thing first?
His attorney, both attorneys. So this one, we were trying to get ahead of that because, we only have one meeting a month. But he said he couldn't give us an estimate because the ILA is not done yet.
They were going to approve it last week, 2 weeks ago.
Well, we have it. We have to prove it. They approved it already. Now it's for us. They said until it's completed, fully completed, he couldn't give us estimates.
You can. I mean, an estimate is an estimate. It's not. Well, it could be worse. It was worse.
Oh, yeah.
It was worse.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
could have approved.
Yeah.
I agree.
Go, go, go.
Okay, the time is now 6:24 p.m. Welcome. If If you would like to speak and have not signed up with the city secretary, you can do that right now. You do need to be signed up to speak, though.
Terry, evening.
Yeah, Terry. And that concludes our meeting.
Yeah.
I thought you said that before to Gary.
Motion to adjourn. I'm over here, Carrie, so I'm gonna vote different tonight.
I guess Sydney, you wanna know why?
Well,
He's virtual.
It makes the table less crowded.
Yeah, well, I figured you and David needed some room
We
over
got,
there.
we can spread out over here.
Oh, she did put it back, okay. Like she had borrowed it. Huh?
I don't think it's that anymore.
Does he not recognize the phone?
My volume earlier than everything else.
They got him going down the road. This
Yeah,
one-
we had him
This
earlier.
one first.
That's all.
We told him you were coming. That.
Maybe that's what it is, they hate me.
No, they're just fascinated by you.
Tackled in the parking lot on the way out.
I like it.
They're just like, I don't know, I can't figure this guy out. That's how we get all the participation, we bring in a star. There he is, new car. Can you say a few things for us real quick, Cindy?
I'm alive and well.
Okay.
We're okay, so we're doing good. Does that count?
Yes.
Thank you, Simeon.
Have a good meeting.
Yep, thanks, Josh.
He's just tech.
You still have
Besides local and. Hopefully we won't need him. He can hear you.
I saw signs all over town for years.
Did you?
On my way, and stopped and picked up a whole bunch of them.
Did you? Appreciate that.
I'll pass them out downtown.
I'm going to have to come up with some kind of co-parenting agreement. I'm not buying any more signs, but everybody's like, I want one. I'm like, I'm going to talk to your neighbor. Y'all can share weekends or
Yeah.
something. I'm not buying any more.
Had a city once years ago, they called me and said, there's some old man out there taking up campaign signs for his opponents. What do we do? Well,
Oh, to stop.
yeah, tell him to stop. But you can arrest him if you want. Go in there and tackle him, you know?
No.
I'm sure it happens.
Yeah, it does.
I think we're going to have to keep that close.
It was on, we complained it was cold, now it's on off. It was like set at 66.
We didn't take into consideration the BTUs and the amount of people.
Right, that's why we put 30 to bring it down.
We were dressing
just saying.
It was cold and they had me turn it up.
It was okay, it was an
Got a
empty
full house.
building.
Jonathan, are you the official timer?
I am gonna stop and start the thing, and she's gonna call out when it goes. This doesn't have a speed
Have
limit.
alarm or anything?
Well, and if it did, it's a really loud bell, but it doesn't ding. Somebody's calling you. They went away. Oh, can I put that on?
If you're on Wi-Fi, you can, I think. You're on Wi-Fi.
I'm on Wi-Fi. If I make it disappear, then
Just slide it down.
Swap.
Yeah. You got it?
yeah, it's still there.
Okay, the time is now 6:30 p.m. We welcome you to our Poetry Town Council meeting for our beautiful town of Poetry, Texas on this March 20th, 2025. We welcome you and want you to feel heard, valued, informed, and connected to your town and its council. We welcome diversity of opinion and want minority views as well as majority views to be heard. We also appreciate mutual respect despite opposing view. Your opinions, suggestions, and comments in favor of or against a topic are welcome. However, this town council meeting is not the time to ask questions or for interrogations. We encourage anyone having questions to come either talk to us at a break or after the meeting, to email or schedule a meeting with us. At this time, I need to remind the public that a disruption of the meeting may be considered a criminal offense according to Texas Penal Code 3813 and 4205. You must be signed up to speak during the meeting and stay on topic according to state law. To preserve the order and decorum of the meeting, any person who makes profane, slanderous, threatening remarks or becomes disruptive during the meeting will be asked to leave or be escorted out by a peace officer and given a citation. At this time, our city secretary will take roll call.
Mayor Tara Sinkovich,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Blake,
Here.
Councilmember Jaffe,
Here.
Councilmember Fowler,
Here.
Councilmember Anderson,
Here.
Councilmember White,
Here.
so everyone is in attendance.
Okay, and quorum is confirmed. At this time, Councilmember Anderson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. Please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to read the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, which is one of the favorites of my wife, Evie, and I think this epitomizes her life as well. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let me bring love. Where there's offense, let me bring pardon. Where there's discord, let me bring union. Where there's error, let me bring truth. Where there's doubt, let me bring faith. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, let me bring your light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. O Master, let me not seek as much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that one receives, it is in pardoning that one is pardoned, and it is in dying that one is born to eternal life. Amen. This is for Evie.
Amen. Thank you. That was beautiful. Okay, so we're at E under citizen comments. So we have Josh Knight. Is Josh Knight here?
He said he was gonna be arriving late, but he said around 6:15, so maybe put him last.
Okay, yeah, I'll put him last then. Okay.
Well, before Simeon, because Simeon said he wanted to discuss.
Dale Bryant. Mr. Dale Bryant. You here?
Dale Bryant, 139 County Road 64. I'm here to talk about agenda item number 1. Obviously, our favorite topic. This ordinance is just riddled with errors. We're talking about an official map, but if you look at paragraph 3, whereas a supplemental survey and boundary coordinates for the town was prepared by Stovall Engineers, and everybody knows we have a statement from Stovall that said that this was not a survey. And if anybody cares to see that, I have a copy of it. But all of the council members have seen this a dozen times. Number 4, whereas the town poetry hired BHC to prepare a survey and a map. Y'all already tried to get them to certify this as a survey, and they're not willing to do that. And also you're talking about the 2021 Hunt County survey, not a survey, and then also the town corporation survey. It's not a survey, according to Texas law. Number 6, section 1, take the survey and map attached here to, and by this reference incorporated herein as Exhibit A. We have the ordinance, we have no Exhibit A. We do not have a complete document that you're going to vote on. You've got to be able to look at the document and look at the exhibits all at the same time. You've got a bad document here, and I just caution the council at looking at trying to take a vote on a document that is not complete. That's really it. I do know your engineer is a member of the Survey Society of Texas that meets those requirements. So I'd be cautious to say that his survey or his work is a survey. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Dale.
Shelley Smith.
9 months ago at the June 20th meeting, it was discussed and decided on with a 4-0 vote to spend an estimate of $5,000 to add 10 stop signs, speed limit signs, and 3 Town of Poetry signs to replace the stolen ones. The December budget shows that $450 was spent on road signage, and I have seen a few town limit signs that are bigger than the original signs. When do you plan to purchase and install these 10 stop signs, which I believe most were for the Grande Verde area? I don't know if the mayor has discretion on when to follow up on things that y'all voted on, but you need to check on that. The Stalker traffic counter shows over 62,000 vehicles pass the sign in a period of 8 weeks, which is about 1,100 per day. I drive 249 on a regular basis, but I turn towards Rockwall from County Road 2456 most of the time. I believe that I've passed the Stalker only twice, which leads me to believe that traffic is even higher in the Grande Verde area. My guess is that a major portion of this traffic is non-Poetry residents. Poetry residents must provide the funds for maintaining this road for the benefit of passers-through. Our residents need to be aware of who their fees are benefiting. Granted, most of the potholes have been filled, which is a very loose definition of filled, by volunteers. The biggest problem you have now is making this road close to level, which volunteers with a shovel will not be able to accomplish. This road demands much more attention than the dead-end roads like Green Meadow and Four Post, which I would estimate no more than 30 cars pass per day. Kaufman County interlocal agreement. How will the council approve this contract for the repairs of County Road 247, 323, and Green Meadow Lane with a blank cost on that contract? Are you to blindly write a blank check to Kaufman County, which needs to be in escrow prior to them conducting any repairs? I would have a serious case of heartburn to agree to something like that with no dollar amount specified. The ordinance to adopt a map. What map? Where's the map? Is this a real map? Exhibit A is supposed to be a map with the official survey. Where is Exhibit A? Is it an invisible map? One has to ask, what does the map reveal? That those who are seeking re-election not want the public to know? Could it be that certain addresses on the map could be called into question? I would be very suspicious of anyone who votes to approve this ordinance. If Exhibit A was provided to you in the few minutes prior to this meeting, have you had time to examine it? Has the public had time to examine it and contact a councilman with their thoughts and concerns? Why is this such a deep, dark secret? This is incredibly suspicious. And as my grandson would say, what's happening?
Thanks, Shelley.
Scott Layhew.
meeting, Scott Leahy, County Road 2426. I spoke with Secretary Ann earlier this week, and she informed me that she and Secretary Teresa are preparing the questions for the Meet the Candidates event at Poetry Baptist whenever that may be, and that those questions will not be shared with the candidates prior to the event. I would like to say publicly that I 1000% trust that neither Secretary Ann or Secretary Teresa would willingly share those questions with some of the candidates and not others. That's not the point of my statement. However, I do feel obligated to advise Secretaries Ann and Teresa that at the 2023 Meet the Candidates event, there is a strong suspicion that some of the candidates had the questions in advance, while other ones did not. This should be avoided at all costs in 2025 to ensure fairness, transparency, and non-bias. To that end, to avoid any appearance of impropriety, allow me to suggest that those questions be kept in an encrypted file, a password-protected file, a flash drive that you can keep on your person, or better yet, on a handwritten piece of paper that stays with you in order to protect the sanctity of the event and make sure that all candidates are on equal footing beforehand. Thank you very much.
Okay, so our attorney has approved me saying this in response. In 2023, all the candidates received the questions in advance. Every one of them in advance. So, okay. And Secretary Ann Secretary Ann and Teresa will be addressing that later in the Secretary memo. I don't have anything to do with the event. So, all right. Thank you, Scott. Next one is Kevin Sinkovich. Okay. Dr. Ann Haran.
I've never come here before. Okay.
Well, welcome.
All right. If you'll start the time. In the past, Poetry Community Christian School has hosted Meet the Candidate Night, where I served as non-voting moderator with the same relationships that I have today. We were asked to do so again a month ago when March 26th was finalized. Our school calendarized it and adjusted other activities and scheduled personnel to enable the event. On February 27th, the town secretary emailed that my thoughts and suggestions were greatly appreciated and welcomed, and thanked me for acting as moderator. I replied candidates would be on stage as before with a podium. I said it's not about me, it's about them responding and audience hearing and seeing them well. I also offered ideas about times, doors open, tables, starting on time, no campaigning or packs on campus, and mixing and mingling afterwards. I stated I would offer a welcome and prohibit rude or harassing comments from the floor or speakers, with the purpose of offering a cordial, respectful sharing of information. As a judge for 30 years, I asked if there was an ordinance or state law preventing the pre-posting of any questions so candidates could be equally prepared and give citizens a better idea about what candidates believe. I noted that, quote unquote, we don't want there to be an appearance of slant because the secretaries of the town prepared the questions. We want to ensure that the public believes that no one with any hat in the ring wrote the questions or might have seen them. I'm sure that hasn't happened, but let's head off the gossip, unquote. Thereafter, I received an email firing the school and me from hosting and moderating. It stated, quote, after further review, we realized that your close connections with some of the candidates could present a potential conflict of interest in the role of moderator. With fairness and neutrality as our top priorities for this event, we felt it would be best to seek a moderator without such affiliations. I was told they replaced me with a local pastor and will use his church. I responded that I was shocked, and I felt this reflected poorly on the school and on me as a professional, since both of us, the school and me, are non-voting. I noted that I do not have relationships affecting my ability to be neutral. Further, a moderator only has a facilitator role, and my relationships are no different than the last time I moderated. I stated that the same principle holds true for my role as a judge since 1995, which requires that I act impartially, engage with the city and the public without bias, even if I know them personally. Here's what I would like to understand, is how the secretaries writing the questions and interacting with the current councilpersons and the mayor often are any more neutral than I am. Why was I an acceptable moderator before and not now? How can a particular church denomination and a pastor be any more neutral than a non-denominational school? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ann. So, do we want Secretary Ann to discuss that in the secretary's memo? Maybe?
Yeah, it's not really appropriate
Yeah,
for
okay.
the interaction, but she can go ahead.
Okay. Laura Lehue?
Laura Lakeview, County Road 2426. I'm extremely disappointed and dismayed in how some are attempting to control and sabotage the Meet the Candidate night for our town. Creating confusion by changing the date and location of the Meet the Candidate night after already publishing this information in the March Poetry Post, in my view, is absolutely an intention to damage and interfere with certain candidates. In addition, the new location is not as large as the PCCS multipurpose building, therefore limiting the number of citizens who could possibly attend. Much like this venue, it really bothers me that this room is so small and it's not a comfortable space for citizens to come to witness these meetings. Citizens that have come to these meetings sometimes get pushed into the overflow room, or they have to go outside because law enforcement is here directing how many people can be in here. I don't think that's a very welcoming environment either. So the Meet the Candidate night, if we have a couple hundred citizens that show up, is there going to be room for them at the new venue? Probably not. It's also my belief that these changes have been made to control and tip the scales in a favorable direction to certain people, thereby interfering with the upcoming election. And I would also like it to be known that I think any reasonable person could come to that same conclusion why this was changed after Dr. Horan was asked in an appropriate way and now is being impugned. It's ridiculous. She's a pillar in the community, and so is the school. So to suggest that there is any impropriety on her part or the school's part is just disgusting. That's not what we need in our town. This is poetry. We should all be supporting each other. And to have any kind of suggestion that she is not a fair and impartial moderator is ridiculous. So I can only conclude there's something else going on behind the scenes, which is just really disappointing.
Okay, Josh Knight, did he show up? Okay, I guess not. Something probably came up for him. Okay. Now, the last one is Simeon White. Are you there?
Point of order, how does it,
He signed up as a citizen to speak.
so we can walk away from the table and be a citizen?
I think you told me during my public announcement that I couldn't address this
No, but
town
you
as.
can't, you can, it's inappropriate because he's a member of the council. But you can't deprive a council member as a citizen of the right to speak. It's not appropriate. And Simeon, if you're going to be speaking at all, I'm hoping that you're not going to be discussing the pending litigation because I will need to cut you off, but
So it's not appropriate,
it's inappropriate,
okay?
but he's a citizen just like anybody here. I've had council members in other cities do it regularly. It's not appropriate, but
He has to be in person.
yeah, you can't tell them that they can't.
But we can all do
Prefer
this,
that
right?
it might not be appropriate. I was just gonna give some information that some people had asked me and just make it public, but thought it was, didn't think it was worthy to put on the agenda because it was more of a personal announcement, just to give some people some understanding. Is
Start
that
the
Mr.
clock.
Burton I hear saying that it's probably not appropriate?
Well, I'm not telling you that you can't do it, I'm just, you gotta make the judgment call on your own.
Ah.
Well, and I guess too, just using the, of course, if he's gonna pretend to be a citizen, but just using the council as a platform for personal business just seems a little bit odd.
I don't know what he has to say.
I'm not up announcing I'm selling hay. or
Well,
doing
he,
something
no,
like
he
that.
was,
It's
there was,
about why I'm not running.
Well, but that's,
And
put it,
somebody brought it up last
But
night.
he was accused last time, and so I cut him off because it wasn't on the agenda, so he decided that he would sign up for the citizens' comment.
well, but I would, to me, I'd say that's, take it on social media or somewhere. I just don't see the, I don't see the council as being I don't have an issue with him defending himself, but I don't think this is, he's not defending against town business, he's defending against a personal attack, and
Yeah, and it wasn't so much a defense, I just wanted to give some people, since there were some questions about it, just kind of a little information, but. If it's not appropriate,
Turn it off.
I'm talking about it, it was just something to help out the, either confusion that was happening or whatever was happening in people's minds.
So okay, so you're saying you don't want to speak, or you do want to?
Mr. Vernon's there, right?
He is.
Oh, okay, he's present, first of all, great on that. Does that sound like something that is, leaning more towards appropriate or inappropriate for a councilman to speak on?
take a vote.
And maybe,
Simeon, it's your call, you gotta make the judgment call on it. You're, as a public official, by running for election and taking the oath of office, you assume certain responsibilities as a city leader. And by necessary implication, you waive certain of your obligations or your responsibilities as a plain citizen. You do have the right to speak. You've got 3 minutes. But you've got to make the call yourself. It is not uncommon. I've seen on a number of occasions in other cities where council members will speak at the podium and use their 3 minutes. You can if you want to, but you got to make the judgment call as to whether or not you believe it to be proper. Can we stop for just a second? There's an awful lot of noise coming from the audience. This is a formal meeting. It's disruptive, and it's certainly disruptive to me.
Yes.
So
It's
that needs to be
disrespectful.
stopped. You all need to just you've spoken your piece, just stay quiet for a bit. You got to make the judgment call, Senior, it's up to you. There are no sanctions.
Well, I like to play conservative, and I'm a rather private person in general, so I wasn't wanting to share my personal life anyways. I was just, I thought there was a need for it. And it doesn't sound like the audience that's currently in the room would be the sort of people that'd be receptive anyways. And I'll decline on this one.
Okay.
Thank you, Simeon.
Yep. And Josh Knight, you didn't make it? Okay. All right, 3 strikes. No more. Okay, so moving on to, that's all of our citizen comments. Thank you. Items of community interest. We wanted to thank the Tacanaga employee for installing the second LED light on the south corner of the town hall building. We did have another one that we did the previous month, and so contrary to an accusation, there are 2 new lights. The battery had gone dead. It had been there for about a year on the pole. We replaced both. Well, we added one and replaced one over there. They are both solar and motion activated, and so don't remain on at all times. When you move across, then it does come on. So it is motion activated though.
Excuse me, did you want to say something about item 6 under community interest? Mr. Cruz
That's
Monge?
gonna be at the end. Yeah. That's the last one, Tom. Okay, thanks to
Okay,
Ken,
gotcha.
Ken P., Brian Lutz, Heather Lutz, Mike Griffin, Poetry Tacanaga employees, Dylan Smith, Yale Smith, myself, Sherry Benson, for spreading 5 tons of asphalt on 249 Friday, February 28th. Thanks to Ken P., Kevin Sinkovich, Councilmember Mike Jaffe, Councilmember Terry Feller, Mike Griffin, Sherry Vinson, myself, Trevor Krueger, Heather Lutz for spreading 5 tons of asphalt on CR 249 Tuesday, March 11th. Thanks to Ken P., Kevin Sinkovich, Mayor Sinkovich, Councilmember Mike Jaffe, Councilmember Fowler, Sherry Vinson, Councilmember Blake for spreading 5 tons of asphalt on Friday, March 14th on 249. Thanks to Encore Electric, who is donating $500 to our agricultural scholarship fund this year. That's great. They have a new representative, and she's been go-getter. Next Friday and Saturday is our spring cleanup. It will be right here at the Town Hall parking lot. We'll have an emphasis on cleaning up the roads on 247 and 248. I'm getting a lot of feedback there. You on it? Okay, thank you so much. And so that will be free of charge to our citizens. That we'll have 2 30-yard rollers there, and it's been very well used in the past. Councilmember Anderson attended the hearings on March 3rd, and then I think the one for March 18th was rescheduled maybe, but he's going to give us a report on that. For Jesus Cruz Mange, who was arrested for indiscriminately shooting his firearm on CR 2440 in July of 2024 and January 2025, and he's going to give a little update on that because that concerns public safety and imminent threats.
Actually, the word deadly was used in the charge.
Okay.
And because he did shoot at some buildings and people, and no one was hit, fortunately. But anyway, in the hearing, apparently he had originally intended to take a plea to guilty plus some time, and then because he also apparently is illegal, he would be deported at the end of his term. This is from the assistant DA, I believe. But anyway, that one was postponed because he fired his attorney and changed his plea in the March 3rd. So it was put off until the 18th. And the 18th, his new attorney came in, and he speaks no English, through the interpreter, and said there's going to be an announcement in April 10th concerning his case, which I'm not sure what announcement means, but maybe it's a plea deal that he's going to take because apparently, he's, whatever the situation is it's very, very serious for him. And the judge, he's in jail. He'll stay in jail. He was released on bond when he did this last July, $10,000 bond, but apparently he violated the conditions of the bond. And before the hearing for the one in July could occur, he did this second issue. And then now this issue is apparently going to be somehow have this announcement on the 10th of April, of which I won't be able to attend. I've got a medical procedure that day. So anyway, it's open to the public. The Judge Aiken made it very clear anybody can attend. Now the only thing is that they said 9 o'clock on the 10th. It doesn't mean he will be there at 9. It just means they'll start the lineup. They usually go with the civil cases first and then the criminal cases after that.
What county is this in?
Hunt County, 354th in Hunt County, and it's in 3rd floor of the Hunt County Courthouse.
Okay, thank you so much for keeping us up to date on that. It does concern several of our citizens, about 75 houses in that area especially. We're very concerned about that. Okay, going on to reports. Item 1, we have the February end report. We had deposits of $12,491.65. Sales and use deposit and franchise fee deposit, ACH deposit. We have checks paid, $3146.17. We had other expenses, ACHs of $2650.39, and our ending balance is $111,865.11. Our outstanding checks are listed here. There's most of these we're waiting for the 3-year limit for them to be up. I think that comes this summer. And then the total there is just, there's the VHC or engineering, Hunt County and Kaufman County were written last month. But most everything else is accounted for.
I noticed our check numbers are missing this time. typically we get to see the check pay date and the check number. Any reason why?
That's a Teresa question.
Okay, I'll follow up with her.
Okay. All right, the February sales and use report. Okay, you can see that in February, we received $12,200.67 in sales and use income. It was quite a bit higher, and maybe it was someone had a big purchase somewhere. So that was quite nice for the town. So our road fund balance, because we spent about $60,000 last month, is $43,323. Our general fund balance is $68,541.94. Okay, we did receive, thanks to Constable Johnson in Kaufman County, they lent us their stalker and placed it, and all we had to do was get the TML insurance on it, which was around $250. So as you may remember, we were looking at buying one, but he spoke up. We're very grateful to that. They did place it. This is an 8-week or 56 days of data. So you can see on the data that we did indeed have 62,129 vehicle count on that road in that 56 days. And 79% of those roughly were going over the speed limit. Now there is, I believe, a couple of 35-mile-per-hour signs, but there could be more. So most of the people, and I get a lot of complaints from people on that road about people speeding. So probably what this suggests is that I think Councilmember Blake helped me go through the data. 77% of the roads on that, or the traffic on that road, is probably pass through, which means they don't live on the road. They're just passing through to get from A to B.
How did we come up with that data?
The 56 days, and she told me there was 49 homes, and if you base it on 3 persons living in the home, 2 trips per.
Just for that road, but it's an access point to our host city, so.
Well, it's a conservative estimate on it, but I just did this based on the numbers she provided to me.
Yeah. No, I'm not questioning the number. I'm thinking pass through is getting to 3486 and getting to the east side of our metropolis.
If you subtracted, there's 49 homes, and you assume 3, like I say, it's an estimate, 3 people in the home, 2 trips per day. That's 294 trips per day for just those 49 homes.
Yeah.
And then you subtract that.
No, I get that, but I guess I'm counting the people that turn on 986 and come to the residence and turn in Grande Verde and come to their residence that are citizens.
Yeah, the only way you get it accurate is to have
multiple.
Wherever the points go into the road, you got to measure the traffic going in.
Right.
And that would require.
And we discussed that. I mean, this is just one data point.
But it definitely leans that a lot of it's most likely pass-through traffic, which we can go to the commissioner saying that we need more help on this road, and we have a little bit of data, and I think he's probably willing to. I mean, based on it's a whole other agenda item, but he's very receptive.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the 79% of the speeders, but I find it interesting that 21% drove under the speed limit.
That was interesting.
That's pretty important too.
Yep.
To our point of order, where I'm getting complaints that people can't hear out here for some reason. Can you not hear in the room, or you can't hear online? Online has gone silent.
It's leaving the house.
Huh?
That's all I can say. I see it leaving on the computer.
Okay.
Can we turn up the volume?
Is there some sort of volume?
No, but open the windows and yell.
Let's try.
Okay. Okay. All right.
So there's no way in this data that we can see the heights. I know the one that we talked about purchasing would take height pictures and recommend truck versus passenger
There's a
car.
setup to see what kind of vehicle it is.
This is just a quantity count really for us.
So Constable Johnson, since it's your machine, I'd like to ask you, so is there a setting on this that would or is this an older model, or do you know about on this machine, is there a setting where it would tell us
Size of
the
vehicle.
size of the vehicle?
There is a setting, but that portion of it was not purchased because of the cost.
Okay,
And I remember us discussing that too.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right. And we so appreciate that data. That is illuminating for all kinds of reasons. Thank you so much. Okay, so Attorney Berman is here. The lawsuit appellate brief has been filed, and he's going to make just a short statement about that.
No, I'm not. I'm just going to say the lawsuit, the appeal is pending. The clerk's record and the reporter's record have both been filed with the appellate court in Dallas, Texas. The plaintiffs have filed their appellate brief very recently. It's long and kind of rambling, and it's pretty much not too dissimilar from their petition, but we'll file our response or our reply brief on time. We've got still a few weeks to do it. Once it's filed, all the stuff is a matter of public record. And you can see what's been filed with the appellate court by looking at the court's website. But our deadline for filing our brief is in a few weeks, and we'll file our reply brief. And then after that, it's hurry up and wait. The appellate court will get around to considering it. It may or may not set it for submission. It may or may not allow oral argument, but everybody's going to request it.
They're having trouble hearing you. Can you put that up a little higher, please? Thank you.
And if we get oral argument, everybody's invited to attend. But that will be, I don't know, in the fall if we're lucky. Way down the road. No rush on it, but that's the status. It's still pending.
So even though they filed it 2 days late, it's still okay?
If they had not filed one at all, the appellate court would have sent them a reminder and given them 15 days automatically. It's unfortunate, but it's not a jurisdictional question. It doesn't deprive them of their opportunity to appeal.
Okay.
So can you speak outside of executive session to tell the council sort of, be nervous, don't be nervous, confident, not confident?
You should all be really worried and begin packing. No. The lawsuit itself, our arguments in the trial court were basically that the court didn't have jurisdiction over any of the claims that they filed. I told you all in executive session that I believed that the court didn't have it. That's why we filed our plea of the jurisdiction. The court agreed with us and dismissed the case in its entirety. Those same jurisdictional issues are still there. We still have them, and our brief will address them once again. These are, I understand the claims, and by and large, I think a lot of them are political concerns, but not legal ones. Council members were joined in their official capacity, not their individual capacity, literally at the last minute. Jonathan, by the way, you are named as a defendant in the amended petition. But it was, that amended petition was an end around, literally filed at the 12th hour, not the 11th hour, the 12th hour, midnight before the hearing, as a means of trying to get around our claims of immunity. So even in a worst case scenario that the appellate court reversed, went to the Supreme Court and they upheld the reversal, we had to go back to trial. And where all of you council members should be maintained in the lawsuit, there is no liability on your part. It's only in your official capacities. But even if it were otherwise, I'm going to tell you right now, you don't need to be worrying about it.
I guess the other concern is financial. I mean, we took a guess as to what it was going to cost to defend up to this point, and we're going to be looking at additional expense, so.
Nothing you can do about that. You can't, I guess you could just simply drop the appeal and give me very clear direction, which would be contrary to my strong advice, to do nothing at all in the Court of Appeals. Under those circumstances, the Court of Appeals would take up the appellate brief that they have filed and may grant the relief without considering our position whatsoever, meaning it goes back to the trial court. You can't, as a political subdivision, you cannot defend the town without having legal counsel. If you were a corporation, the same rule would apply. It is necessarily an expense. I hate to say it, but for most cities, this is regarded as just simply a cost of doing business. Right. Unfortunately for poetry, it's a huge cost relative to the other expenses that we've got. Best I can tell you is at trial, the case was dismissed long before trial. The opposing side is doing everything they can to, I can't say that they're doing things that are deliberately intended to increase the costs of defense. But, you know, it's district court litigation and appeal in the Texas Court of Appeals, and none of this stuff is free, none of it's cheap. So I don't know what to tell you about that. I will say I'm pretty cheap with you guys. I've been very,
There's a lot more.
been very gentle with the town.
Absolutely.
The best I can tell you is I'm trying to be as gentle as I can and still be able to fade the heat with my partners.
Well, and I'm not, don't hear me as judging you, I'm just wondering, the first part was moderately painless cost-wise. I mean, it could've been a lot worse.
Right.
The numbers are relatively small compared to the risk, so is the second part?
For us, it will not be.
Yeah,
For the town, it will not be. And the reason why is because in the trial court, we had to do some other special things. They had moved for sanctions to compel discovery. We needed to get the judge to stay the discovery. They filed an amended pleading at the very last minute, which necessitated us having to file an amended plea to the jurisdiction. We had to go through a bunch of steps and procedures in the trial court to get to finally get the court to dismiss the case. In the Court of Appeals, the expense is going to be filing the brief on appeal, the research and drafting that is necessary to file our brief, which will happen in a couple or 3 weeks. After that, we're done. I mean, if we get an oral argument, which would be wonderful, that's going to be 2 to 3 hours, but it's in Dallas. I'm not going to have to drive all the way out to Hunt County. And so the costs of defense on appeal will be substantial. I should say substantial, will be much less than the costs that we've incurred going through trial to get where we are now.
Okay, well, that
Okay,
helps.
that helps, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, David. Okay, so number 4 is Secretary's memo, read by Town Secretary Ann Hamilton.
Okay. To start off, I'm going to address the elephant in the room about the upcoming election. To start with, I'm going to read to you what the law is. The city secretary's office is responsible for conducting municipal elections as prescribed by Election Code 143.006. If you need me to repeat that so you can write it down, I will, in the state of Texas. So that is exactly who's responsible, because I've been getting a lot of questions about the impropriety of the secretaries doing this. It's the law that the secretaries are doing this, first and foremost. Secondly, I'm a little distressed about the reading of the letter that I sent to Dr. Haran. It was not that cold and impersonal. There was a lot more in it. If anybody would like to read it on their own, I don't see why they can't. I would be happy to provide that. Again, there is no impropriety. Events change all the time. And I'm sure everybody here doesn't go to that venue and throw a fit every time somebody changes a date of an event. There is no conspiracy. There is no reason for it. The reason that we had to change it, when the Deputy Secretary, Teresa, brought up having Dr. Haran do it, I was fine with that. As you all know, I don't live in this community. I don't know many of you personally, or really any of you personally, and I certainly have never met Dr. Haran before this evening. But since we had asked her to do that, I was made aware of a few conflicts of interest that might arise. Now, I've already had a handful of people here tonight bring up concerns about the last election and bring up conspiracy theories because we've changed the election. So imagine how this would have gone if I let it continue. So I will briefly tell you what the concerns are. The mayor worked for Dr. Haran for quite a long period of time. So there's impropriety number 1. A couple of council members have relationships, both personal and professional, with Dr. Haran. So there's problem number 2. And number 3, a person who is currently in Dr. Haran's employ has litigation going on against this town. Problem number 3. So those are 3 reasons right there that it makes her could be a conflict of interest. My responsibility is to the town and to make sure that the town is above reproach. I'm sorry if this upsets people, but it will also upset people if the questions and answers don't go to the way somebody would like it to, and they bring up all of these issues. and then we have to go to court about it because somebody doesn't like it. So I'm removing all of those issues ahead of time. We had to change the venue because Dr. Hooray, the school, is doing an immense amount of plays and practice. That's why we had it so early to begin with, to accommodate the school schedule. Since we had to move it, that's the reason we had to move it from the school, because it does not, you can look on on the website. I can see you shaking your head. You can look on the school's website, and you can see their calendar. Again, I'm sorry if you don't like it, but this is the law, and this is what we're doing, and I'm cutting out any reasons of impropriety. To address Mr. Leahy's concern, nothing is on site as far as questions go. They are not in this office at all. Nobody will see them. They will be handed to the moderator in a sealed envelope right before we begin. It is my concern also that nobody see the questions ahead of time. So Secretary Teresa and I have taken care of it off-site, and the questions aren't even here. So if anybody were to go through the office trying to find them, they won't find them. So I hope I've addressed everybody's concerns. That's as far as I am concerned, this conversation is now done. I really don't think it needs to go on any longer. So with that in mind, the rest of the Secretary's memo brings up the fact that the election has begun and will continue through June 12th. During these dates, the Town Poetry offices are open Mondays and Thursdays, 1 to 7, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 12 to 3, as is required by law. Spring Cleanup Day is scheduled for Friday, March 28th and Saturday, March 29th, as the mayor has brought up. We will focus on roads 247 and 248, and we want to thank Blackjack Disposal for generously donating the roll-on, what they call those big things?
Roll-off
The-
dumpsters.
Yeah, the dumpsters that will be here for everybody to use. I believe we still need a few volunteers. There's a sign-up sheet right there by my window if anybody would like to sign up. I'm through.
So, Tara, just as a question to free up Ann, because she didn't want to talk about it anymore, and I don't blame her. Is it your contention that the Town of Poetry is legally responsible for conducting things like Meet the Candidate?
My understanding is that the city secretaries have to plan anything like that. I have to stay completely out of it.
Okay, well, because I spoke to the Secretary of State today for an hour, to their legal department, and they said no such thing. In fact, I have everything that the town is supposed to do with regards to special office hours, conducting the election, and other things, and nowhere in there. So typically, something like a Meet the Candidates is sort of a local event sponsored by perhaps a news station or a political action committee or citizens group or something like that. It's not the burden of the town.
May I address that? You're correct. I mean, it's not something that we have to do. It's something that has been provided in the past as a courtesy to
Right.
the citizens of the town, but by no means are we required to do it. What we're required to do, like you said, you looked up all the election stuff and the rules, and that's what we're required to do. But like I said, in the past, it was just a courtesy both to the candidates and to the members of the town.
Well, and I guess the obvious tangle is because some of us are running or not running or thinking about running, and then the town, and I agree with the statement that was made by Scott. I completely trust you and Teresa and what you're trying to do. I think your intentions are honorable, but it just creates a lot of worry. And so when I started looking this up, I thought about like presidential debates. I mean, those aren't put on by the federal government. Those are put on by some news station,
Right,
that sponsors it, and they invite the candidates, and the candidates don't have to show up.
correct.
They can choose. So in my mind, anybody in the Town of Poetry could sponsor or meet the candidate,
Correct.
invite whoever they want, and have a little event, right? So if the town does one, great, somebody else does one, great, but it's not, I guess, just to relieve us of this idea that the town is legally responsible for owning and managing. It's not.
No, that's correct. When I ran for election,
Hey,
I'm sorry, is there someone else at the table speaking?
That is disruptive. It's disruptive. I'm sorry. You can't speak out of the chamber.
when I ran for election, we went to, multiple, events, like the NAACP had one, and, other, like you said, political action groups, and people that were concerned with, the running of the school. So, yeah, we're not required to do it, it's just been like a tradition, I guess, or it's just been something that's been done, and so I was just following that, but no, by no means are we required to do it.
Okay, well, that's fine, because the one next week is in fact happening, and candidates are being invited, and it's up to them whether they show up. Ann had already cleared the calendar and set up everything, so the idea is, I guess that one's a go, and maybe it gives us 2 opportunities
Sure, I
to
mean,
meet the candidates.
exactly, I mean, she's perfectly welcome to continue to have her own.
Right.
That's, we're not a part of that, you're right.
Okay.
And, if everybody here decides they don't wanna do the meet the candidate, that we're gonna run, that's fine too. That's just a decision you guys would have to make and let us know.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Berman's here. Should we be out of the business of hosting that as a town?
It's up to you. You
I
don't
wanna
have
be
to.
out of the business.
You don't have to do it. if
Well,
you don't
but
want to.
would you rather have a PAC do it? I mean,
Well, I
I
don't think
think
this
that
is
would
being
be
hosted
terrible.
by a PAC and shouldn't be posted that way. This is a historic venue that our town has used. We've had 2 meet the candidates that Dr. Haran has helped oversee, and I trust you, but I trust her a lot, and to her credibility and her being a judge for 30 years, that proves her that she is gonna be unbiased and that it's gonna be a fair event. And to Dave Berman saying it's our choice, and his reading, I don't think we need to be in the business anymore. I think it was a great startup for the city, but I don't think it's our job to host those.
Well, again, I think the one that is moderating, they're just holding the bowl and you grab something out of it. I mean, they're not influencing the questions
Right.
by
and
running
again,
the
it's-
event.
I mean,
so.
if anyone else is doing it, you're 100% correct, Terry. I mean, they can, I don't have any problem personally with Dr. Haran's, connections or anything like that. I mean, you guys live in the town, you're gonna know each other.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. But if we're a part of it, then you see that, I have to kind of be above board. But if we're not a part of it, you guys can decide on your own if you feel like comfortable
But we
enough to
didn't-
go or you're not comfortable to
We
go.
didn't ask anybody if they attend church at that location.
That's right.
That's a conflict.
I don't think anybody does.
We don't think.
You don't attend there.
Poetry Baptist?
I thought you attended at Lake Point.
I do, and Terrell Assembly and North Place.
So Bob goes there. Is
And
Mr.
Bob
Duffy?
sees me there from time to time. Yes, we do.
Well, if anybody has a problem with the pastor, they're more than welcome to bring that up as well.
Well,
I'd
and I
certainly
think
consider it.
Well,
The-
I don't see, that's not
The
a
pastor
conflict for me,
offered,
but
and
it's,
so,
Yeah.
and he's relatively new, so that was seen as a plus, I think, in their eyes, so.
well, I think we talked a couple of years ago about bringing somebody in from the outside that doesn't know any of us, right? Which
And
would
I'm
be
fine
kind
with
of
that as
ideal,
well.
but I don't know. Anyway, there is an event next week. There's apparently another event April 3rd. Everybody gets an invite and we'll see who shows up.
There you go.
So.
Okay.
But are we endorsing as a city the April 3rd?
Well, I don't think we should disrespect our city secretary's
I'm not
efforts.
saying we should
Well,
either. She's an
it's bad.
employee
Yeah.
of this council.
Yeah.
Right.
And she.
And have we
and
instructed her to do that?
Jana, the previous secretary, held one, and she was responsible for that one, and I thought it went quite well. Dr. Haran is a professional. It's, as a candidate, I have to stay completely out of it, but I just feel like it was a tradition, and we, historically, there have been several events around town in different way, but we're off Secretary's memo, so, and it's not really an agenda item, so we can maybe, let's move on.
So we just continue town business as is? I mean, we've never voted to do any of this, spend secretary's time, any of this.
Well, we're not doing extra time. It's during the
The state,
hours that we're obligated to be here
yeah, by the
by
state.
election law. So we're being very diligent that we're not going over extra time. And Terry, to that point, I mean, previous years, we weren't being sued by, one of the people that works for Dr. Haran.
I'm not part of that.
So that's the difference.
I am not part of that.
Okay, moving on. Consent agenda, approve the minutes from February 20th, 2025 meeting.
I'll make a motion to move them to the regular agenda for edits.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? And Simeon, okay, and that, okay, we'll label that as item A. Number 2, approve the January legal bill of $913.75.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Blake, second by Fowler. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Number 3, approve the TML annual membership bill of $812.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And we have a motion by Blake, second by Anderson. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to the regular agenda. Item A, the minutes from February 20th, 2025 meeting.
This is under regular agenda number 2. And I had to go back and review it just so I was accurate. It says Councilmember Fowler believes that this was actually voted on. So when I went back and looked at it, Councilman Jaffe was the one that pointed it out. And then I showed proof of the check numbers and the date they were cleared.
Well, this is the auditor where we paid her twice.
Well,
No, we didn't pay her
This is-
twice.
We approved it.
you brought it up, and then I said, yeah, it's in our P&L statement. So,
Where are you?
number 3, number 2,
Number 2, on page 3.
page 3, under
Okay.
regular agenda,
Okay,
says Council Fowler believes.
so it was actually Jaffe.
Jaffe pointed it out, I showed the discrepancy. You said we received it in January. I think that needs to be noted in here because the invoice date was 12/19, and I checked with Secretary Teresa today. The check was written on 1/2/25. So that means we would have had it voted on in December. It wasn't in the December agenda either.
And it wasn't in the minutes. I went back.
It wasn't in the minutes.
Yeah.
So it means we didn't pass it, but it was paid.
Right, and
So we approved it after the fact.
we proved it after the fact.
Accidentally.
Yeah.
No, it was paid on 1/2 before
I-
council
No,
voted
I
for it.
understand, but then we voted on it again at the last meeting.
In case we
Right.
didn't already
Yeah.
pay it, but we had proof we'd already paid it.
So, yeah, so having run accounts payable for over 15 years, things happen. This was on the agenda like 3 times and we had to move it back. In fact, tonight, we're supposed to hear the actual audit. That was
How do
paid
you want to say
early.
this in the minutes?
So how do we
How do you wanna
record
say-
this in the minutes that it was paid before council approval?
And I did talk to Attorney Berman. He said we did approve it, so it
So
occasionally
then
happens.
he can weigh in on how we're gonna record it in the minutes.
I can go back and listen to the tape to see if I missed something in December.
No, I did.
Oh, okay.
Well,
The
do
first
you
time
have a
council
suggestion?
council got the invoice was 1/10/2025.
Okay, the invoice came later, or came earlier, but we were waiting on the audit presentation.
Check was written on 1/2.
Yeah.
So council couldn't have considered it before payment.
Yeah, no, it was paid, early, prematurely. Yep.
Without council consent, which is neither here nor there, I guess. I mean, we had to pay the bill.
Absolutely, and it was a 5-0 vote to pay it, but
And it
I
was
just want it recorded
approved in the
accurately in the
budget,
minutes.
so what do you, you wanted
So
to
give
say
us the
something?
language, what do you want to say?
Yeah.
We screwed up, we made a mistake,
Yeah, somebody said paid before prior approval.
we failed to approve it in the prior meeting, but we covered it during this meeting, and
Yeah, I mean, whatever you think. I mean, this is not capturing the essence of that agenda item.
I mean, that was a sidebar, that wasn't even the.
Okay, so let's put, Councilman Jaffe pointed it out that it was already cleared. Fowler showed on the P&L where the check was cleared.
So you're saying this is on item, okay, this item 2, okay,
to
so,
bottom of page 3.
so okay, we'll just correct the language.
And then put later discovered that council didn't vote on it until February 2025, February meeting.
That's fine.
Okay,
That's good.
all right, all those in favor of the amendment? And,
Oh, did you get those typos that I gave you?
I made the motion.
Motion, I'll second it.
okay, we have a motion by Fowler, seconded by Jaffe, all those in favor? And that is approved, 5-0, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? Do I need to go back and change be a previous note from, just this going forward?
Yeah.
I don't need to go back and change.
Change what?
Well, she can't change anything unless we bring it back up.
The
Right,
minutes.
Right.
Well, she can change these minutes.
We talking about changing.
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because since you said that it was, written on 1/2
Yes.
and invoiced on 1/10, but we didn't vote on, I didn't know if I needed to include it in the January.
No, we're only
It's not
amending
since
the
we didn't come-
February. Yeah,
Okay.
leave January alone, just
Yeah.
amend February.
Okay.
Hey, Tar, did you get those 2 typos I gave you the other day?
Oh, got another
Okay.
change? Typos don't have to be voted on, right?
Well, one, it included a dollar amount, so we changed it in advance of the meeting. So Tom's a really great editor. Thank you for that, Tom. All right, so moving on to item 1, discuss the Burkhoff, Hendricks, and Carter LLP meeting and corresponding ordinances to adopt an official survey and map. So we had hoped that the engineering firm would have a final draft for us. They do not. We did, however, have a meeting because remember last month there were some questions that were legal questions, and so our attorney was not present at that time. So it was very imperative that we have a meeting to allow Attorney Berman to speak to the survey and engineering experts are not legal experts, so they had some questions, and so I facilitated a meeting with Mr. Berman and the engineering firm, and so that was the main crux of that. And so Mr. Berman is going to reiterate what he discussed in that meeting to the engineering and surveyors, even though they weren't able to come up with a completion for tonight, which we were hopeful. We didn't know, and that's why you don't have anything in your packet. There's no conspiracy. It just, they don't have it finished. They're waiting on Chase Crawford, who is the surveyor. He wanted to submit it to the official what is it, the survey and board of survey and engineers. So, and he hasn't heard back from them, and so he's going to his board, and so that's his purview to do so. And but we do want to hear from Attorney Berman regarding some of the legal on this.
Well, I think the issue really starts with, or comes down to the statement that they're placing on the map and the survey. And I'll read the statement. It says, this document was prepared under 22 TAC, Texas Administrative Code, Section 663.21.
It's hard to hear you.
And does not reflect the results of an on-the-ground survey, and is not to be used to convey or establish interests in real property, except those rights and interests implied or established by the creation or reconfiguration of the boundary of the political subdivision for which it was prepared. Basically, it's a statement that they're including, that they believe they need to include in their survey and in the map, that says that it does not reflect the results of an on-the-ground survey. An on-the-ground survey, given the configuration of the town, it would be a colossal expense. I can't imagine that we'd have the money to be able to pay for a survey that involved an on-the-ground survey, but surveys aren't required to be on the ground. There is a provision in the Texas Administrative Code, and it's not the one that they cited. Their recitation is a bit of an archaic recitation, but the rule is now Rule 183.95, subsection 4 of Chapter 138, Part 6 of Title 22 of the Texas Administrative Code. The subsection reads, the surveyor signing the work must have performed an on-the-ground survey. Now, these are surveys that are required to be done for political subdivisions, including towns. The surveyor signing the work must have performed an on-the-ground survey to support any course and distance recited in the description, except that the description may quote courses and distances from recorded documents, and then in parentheses, the rule says such as deeds, as long as the recording reference for any related documents or any recited documents are also quoted in the description. So understand that these requirements, or that requirement, is not a legal requirement for the sufficiency of the legal description. That is a professional standard imposed on surveyors. It has nothing to do with whether or not a survey or a legal description that we get from them is legally sufficient or is defensible. What we need is something that is called a survey, and I'm not exactly sure what the definition of a survey is. I mean, to be honest with you, there is not a statutory definition, nor is there one that can be easily found in the Administrative Procedure or Texas Administrative Code. generally what we look for is something that provides a description of the property such that a third person would be able to identify the boundaries using that document. It doesn't have to be a meets and bounds on-the-ground survey that uses the surveying equipment that you see surveyors use all the time, those yellow things on tripods, with angles, distances, courses, and arcs. Our surveyor, in trying to comply with this administrative code requirement, this professional requirement, what they're going to do, as I understand it, is they're going to revisit it. They're not going to be doing an on-the-ground survey because we simply can't afford something like that. But they can quote courses and distances from recorded documents. It doesn't have to be a deed. A deed is simply used as an example in that definition, but it can be something else. Our description is based on the courses of roadways, and those roadways are the subject of some instruments that are a matter of public record. They need to be confident that they can, and it's not our call, it's their call, that they can seal our survey, our legal description, using references to recorded documents that relate to those streets. It doesn't, again, affect the legality or the sufficiency of the survey or the map. This is simply a technical requirement, a professional standard imposed on surveyors. It doesn't, and the law does not require our survey or our boundary description to have the seal of a surveyor on it. We'd like to have one because, number one, we're paying for it, and number two, that seal gives us, for transparency purposes, some level of confidence. But it's not required, I'm reluctant to say we should go ahead and adopt it without a seal on it. I want to make sure that our engineers and our surveyor is comfortable with sealing that document before we can adopt it. Now, on the agenda tonight, I believe, are two different ordinances. One simply contains factual recitations that I didn't draft, which is fine. I mean, the one that I proposed actually adopts the map and the survey. I'm not quite sure that it's ripe for adoption tonight, given the fact that we don't have an answer from our engineers. And the fact that the map and survey are not a part of the packet, that's something that you all need to be considering. I don't have a problem with it being a part of the packet. It probably ought to be if the ordinance is going to be up for adoption.
Well,
but until we have a seal on it from our engineer, or a determination from them, a conclusion that they're not going to seal it, then it's appropriate for full discussion and full disclosure of all that information. For our purposes tonight, there is some holdup, and our surveyor is working on it, and they're going to give us a seal, or they're going to tell us they're not going to seal it. Either way, we've got something that we can use. So,
It seems like that little box, I'm looking at the map behind you, because I think that box is the part you read or somebody read.
it's exactly what that.
I mean, to me, that sort of guts their part of saying this is a legitimate map and this is done according to some standards. I mean, it just says basically it doesn't meet this requirement, doesn't meet that, it wasn't done this way, it wasn't, I mean, it just sort of.
well, one of the things that the takeaway in the meeting that I got, I recognized that there's a real estate survey and then there's a boundary survey. They're two different animals, and to judge one by the other isn't.
Yeah, no,
Is that?
the statement that you're looking at there, I think, is pretty standard for surveyors and engineers to put when they're doing something like this. It was prepared under 22 TAC 663.21, not 663.21, but the successor rule that says exactly the same thing. The document was prepared in accordance with the rule because the rule pertains to surveys or legal descriptions that are done for political subdivisions. If this were the purchase, if we were buying a piece of real estate or we were selling it, we'd want an on-the-ground survey. And I wouldn't let you guys be purchasing it without something that was really clear and very definite. But the law and the rule kind of recognizes a bit of latitude for government work. The statement itself is a standard pro forma statement that basically says it was done as a legal description for a political subdivision. It can't be used for deed purposes. It can't be used for the conveyance or the establishment of interests in real property because it's not done for that purpose. Right. That makes sense? Yep. So the statement is generally to be clear about that, we're not directing them to include areas that are not really supposed to be a part of the town, or exclude areas that are supposed to be a part of the town. I think the goal here is simply to clarify the incorporation documents and what the county's doing.
I think we were trying to correct what some of us saw as conflicting data between the tabular data, the table, and between the drawing, and we said, well, to connect that, let's just put a little circle in there, let's put a little,
No, that's not the purpose for that.
okay. Well,
That wasn't
I
the
mean,
purpose for that.
quite a few things changed. I mean, there were several things
No,
that,
these Stovall Engineering had some mathematical errors, but the circular was already, it was there from the beginning, from the
It was
initial
on the
map.
incorporation
It
map.
was on the
there were
incorporation.
some circles, but I felt like we gained some
I don't
in
think,
the last revision. I don't know.
I think the one that you mentioned last year was the only one that I think wasn't on there.
Okay.
There was one.
Just the one.
And that was because they thought, well, since, let's have some consistency, that was, Mr. Fowler brought that up, but all the rest were there.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but the purpose of this exercise, and you have been undergoing this process for quite some time, is to clarify the boundaries of the town based on the incorporation documents. And under no circumstances do you have the authority to add new property or delete or remove. This exercise is simply to confirm and verify and clarify what's supposed to already be there. That make sense? So,
Well, I still don't understand how we reconcile the stuff that was broken that we fixed. I mean, I don't know.
So I was in attendance in that meeting, and I've sat here and listened to all this. Mr. Berman, I want to point out that you spent a minute discussing what we had and calling it a survey. And Mr. Hendricks said, can I opine? And his first statement was, no, it's not a survey. That's true and accurate. So then you go on to.
but if you attended the entire meeting,
I did.
he did continue to refer to it as a survey. That was.
You were driving or something,
He said that
I was in the whole meeting. Yeah, it's a illusory truth effect, right? We continue to call it a survey, but it doesn't make it true.
Right.
We're just calling it a survey. So when we're
Yes.
talking about this meeting, he goes on to tell us what a survey is, because me and you and your attorney, and I give you a ton of respect for that, but me and you are in difference in what a survey is. Correct? You say that statutory is not defined, but is occupation code considered a state law?
Texas Occupation Code is a state law.
Huh?
Yes, it is a state law.
And does occupation code, Title 6, 107.1.002 define a survey?
Well, I don't know, Terry. Let me look
Well,
it
it's in
up.
my ordinance.
Which one is it?
I don't know how you differentiate them. It's the ordinance that I proposed.
What section did you reference?
1071.002.
Since we don't have the surveyor engineer's final report, we will have more time to kind of
This is it.
digest all of this.
Yeah, you know,
Berman, this is it, if you.
well, hang on. I'd rather look at it under the statute.
Okay.
107.1.002.
You can skip to number 6.
Number 6 defines the practice of professional surveying. It says, and I quote, "Professional surveying means the practice of land boundary or property surveying or other similar professional practices. It includes performing any service or work, blah, 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 locating boundaries, plotting, preparing, consulting." That doesn't define a survey, Terry. That simply describes and defines the phrase professional surveying.
It is the practice of surveying. We can all agree that there's only one person that can do a legal survey in the state of Texas. That this is the occupation code that guides a registered professional land surveyor. This is the law that guides them on what they can call a survey. So I think this defines what a survey is.
That definition is not the definition of a survey. Again, let's be clear.
Locating real property boundaries.
Let's be clear. 107.1.002 of the Texas Occupation Code in subsection 6 defines the phrase professional surveying. That defines the practice of land boundary property surveying or other similar professional practices. It doesn't say this is a survey. It just
The term
defines.
includes, and then it goes into A, then it goes into point 1, point 2, point 3, locating real property boundaries.
Sure it does. The term includes. It doesn't say the term includes and is limited to.
But it
just
does
simply says the
include
term
locating
includes.
real property boundaries.
Yes, not appropriate for us to get into a legal argument, but I'm going to tell you For clarity purposes, that section doesn't define a survey, it defines the practice of professional surveying.
Okay, fair enough. We'll agree to disagree on that. As you were discussing in that meeting, 138.95, you went on to read what you read there, and you said the balance of the statement is not relevant, not to be used to convey real estate, blah, blah, blah. I think the remainder of that statement is relevant. I think it discusses the establishment of a boundary for a municipality.
That's what the first phrase says. The document was prepared under 22 TAC, section 663.21 or 138. That is a boundary description done for a political subdivision. It does not reflect an on-the-ground survey. It can't be used to convey your established interests in real property. In other words, you can't buy or sell property based on that survey or that description.
What is the continuance of number 5? Do you have that, 138.95, number 5?
Bear with me.
I have it right here.
No, I got it. Any survey document prepared under this rule shall bear note as follows. This document was prepared under TAC. That's exactly what that says.
Yes, sir. Does not reflect the results of an on-the-ground survey and is not to be used to convey, and your words were, the balance of the statement is not relevant. And then you went on to quote, not to be used to convey real estate, blah, blah, blah. I think the balance is important, Mr. Berman, because it said it's not to establish or to be used. You can take the convey part out because it says or. The next section would say not to be used to establish by the creation of a boundary for a political subdivision.
Terry, what's your point here?
My point is we're getting a legal survey and we
So
have
you're
our
arguing
attorney
with
here.
our paid attorney.
Now that's over with, Mr.
I think
Berman.
that is so obnoxious, but, wow.
Well, but I think they've
Hold on, y'all.
both conceded that his expertise is law. He's
I don't have an
coming up to
expertise.
speed- You're coming
I've
up
been
to
only-
speed on surveying, I guess.
The last half of that statement is really saying that the document can be used for rights and interests implied or established by the creation or the reconfiguration of the city's or the town's boundary lines. Meaning the rights like voting rights, interests that are implied or established by our boundaries. Their obligation to pay franchise fees, a whole bunch of different things.
Taxes,
Yeah, I mean, that's what that says, basically. I mean,
It
So,
said it's not to be used to
correct me if I'm
establish
wrong. I'm trying to understand,
creation
for a
of the
lot of
boundary
us
of
in
the
the room are trying to understand as well. So a boundary created for a government entity, a survey for a boundary is very different from a real estate survey that includes all the rights of a real estate transaction. Is that
Property rights.
what I'm understanding?
it doesn't establish property rights. And the first half of that extra phrase simply says that you should not use this document to buy or sell real estate. The other half says that it can be used to establish rights or interests, or to create rights or interests based on the configuration of the boundaries of the town.
We'll agree to disagree on that too.
I don't think we agree or disagree on it. I mean, that's what it says.
Earlier,
Establish the creation
you used the
of-
example of they could tie it to a deed. Could they conceivably tie it to the farm roads, 986, 1565 as their reference point for all the other roads? Is that what they're saying?
That's what their task is now, is
That's
to
what they're
find and reference and recite in this document recordations of those roads. Our configuration is based on center lines of roadways. Those are public roads, and there are public documents and records that pertain to those in their configuration, their extent, their locations. And so, you know, they can use, I believe they can certainly use roadways as a reference, as a point of reference, just like they could use the course of a stream or a river. But they're trying to figure out what they need to do to contain references in this document. It's up to them. I mean, they may not necessarily agree completely with what we believe or what I believe the interpretation of this provision to be, but this is a professional standard, not a legal requirement. something that they need to be comfortable with, not that we are requiring for the validity of our survey or our map.
So Tara, to your point is a point of order. So what we have in front of us are two ordinances, one prepared by you.
Can we discuss the semicircles? That was a point of our meeting too. This
Okay.
says discuss the meeting. So we differ on that opinion too, and I just want it to be known that the engineers have stated multiple times, 3 times, that they cannot argue for the semicircles on the ends of the roadways. So.
That's an engineering issue, that's not a legal one.
It is an engineering, but if and when we ever get called to court, you're gonna be there to represent us. They can't make that argument. How are we gonna defend that they can't make an argument for those semicircles?
I know, you're talking about a hypothetical here.
Okay.
So
I don't know how to
if
answer
we're
that.
trying to, I think the council voted to try and get the map as close as possible to the incorporation petition map so that the circles were there and that was consistent.
But they can't argue it because they said the map should be a reflection of the points that you've pointed out before, which are legally defined as. There's nothing in there that tells them to draw that. We're talking about a professional engineering firm that we hired and we entrusted. They can't make an argument for those circles.
But I think if it's on the incorporation map that people signed the petition for,
Well, that
then
was our
to take that off would be inconsistent, and I think that would be more troublesome.
I don't think so.
So,
Yeah, this
I
is
mean,
just to clarify what the incorporation document said, that's all. That's why we're going through this exercise at all.
We instructed them to go to the center of the road, which was not in the original things, but it was on every map everybody saw.
Because they can defend that as intent, and we can support that. But when I have a professional engineer that's saying, I can't argue for those radiuses, there's a termination point at a point of beginning and a point of end. There's nothing that instructs them to continue a radius.
Well, we went on the intent that the incorporation map, and every map that everybody's ever seen had semicircles on it. And as a lay person, I understand that. I see the image, and I can understand it has semicircle. That chart, I can't do the numbers.
Sure.
So we instructed them to include that because that's what everybody saw. I mean, if David says it's a thing that we can't legally defend and we have to cut all the semicircles off, then that's what we do. If he tells us that's what we have to do. But I'm gonna defer to him on the legal part of it.
Our discussion with our engineers needs to be, you guys need to be giving us that which is based on our incorporation documents. I don't know anything about semicircles. If the incorporation documents included them, the engineer should be including them in what they give us. If the semicircles are not a part,
They're only included in the image,
Not in the data points.
not in the data points. It's just-
then I'm going to rely on them. I mean, this is their,
But they're telling us they can't argue for it.
So why
They're
can't-
doing what we
Whatever
told them, because council said draw the semicircles. So it's council, it's not them. It is council telling them to draw the semicircles.
Only because that's what
Again,
everybody saw.
when we draw semicircles, we're bringing people in and out of our town.
But again, it was on the original map, those were there. We're trying to be as consistent with the original map as possible. So
And we
if
have
we
to be
start checking.
comfortable as voters.
Well, but we voted to do that as a council, we voted to give them that instruction, and that's a done deal.
It's not done.
As far as giving them instruction, that was an ordinance that we gave them instruction on how to do
They
it.
completed it. They drew
I
out the
would
semicircle.
also deem it unwise to cut people out of the town that have been in the town and voting just before election. I mean, if you wanna look suspicious, go cutting off sections of
Wait till after the
road where
election.
people are about to vote.
Or add.
Of course, most councils
Yeah,
are running
or
for
add.
re-election.
All right, we need silence in the chamber, please.
Okay, so Terry, this is your item. What do you wanna do with this?
Well, I'm curious on Mr. Berman's, review of my ordinance, because obviously it didn't meet someone's criteria because we paid for another ordinance.
Well, that was already sent before
let me-
yours. Yeah.
Berman's
Let me
was sent
address that.
before mine?
Your-
do you have your ordinance in front of you?
I do.
All right, the ordinance doesn't do anything, it simply contains a set of recitations. The goal of this exercise is for us to adopt a survey. The town needs to adopt a survey.
Okay.
This, my reading of this did not indicate anywhere that it said, a survey is here, excuse me. My reading of this did not indicate that in any place did it say, a survey is hereby adopted.
Okay. So Yeah, I'm no expert on this. I mean, I think if
gotcha.
you read this, you could have said, hey, Terry, I think we need to change some language in there.
No,
But
there's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
Okay,
that's
so-
why both of the ordinances are on the agenda. I
But
mean,
they're two starkly different ordinances.
they are
I
not.
think yours
Sure-
says
sure they
accept what
are.
we have, right?
And call them
bless it.
surveys.
Right.
Yeah, well, the ordinance that I drafted is the operative ordinance that would be adopted by the town to formally adopt a survey. Right, Terry's ordinance is fine. I mean, it's, my reading of that indicated that that it's harmless. It doesn't really, it contains recitations, which are fine, you're allowed to do that, but it doesn't adopt the survey. And so when reading that, I did an ordinance that actually adopts a survey, which is basically patterned after the same ordinance that I'd presented to the town months ago, quite some time ago. So it didn't really cost anything, you guys have already paid for
It
it.
was already there.
So to execute a survey is not the same as adopting a survey.
No,
It's not?
not at all.
So if we change
And-
execute to adopt, then we're good?
No, this is the caption. The caption is a summary of the ordinance. It doesn't say that in the.
we
you
already
can-
had it.
I'm okay with adopting that if you want to do that.
Good.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. It's harmless to do that. I mean,
But
if
the
you want
intent
to,
is
you
make
can.
make it adopt an ordinance to call for a survey.
But
That's the intent of this.
That's what my ordinance does. That one
And-
doesn't say
and-
that.
And I don't think they're the same. Can you show me how they're the same when we're calling Hunt County Survey a survey?
So
They're
this might
not
be
the same.
better handled on a private conversation.
My ordinance and your ordinance are not
we
the
can
same.
This is a lot of
I'm
detail.
fine with that. We can
I mean,
talk
we don't,
But we're gonna have
obviously,
to.
we can't pass this tonight, so.
I was gonna say, I wonder, do we move this to next month and hope to
Well,
have whatever piece is
Right,
missing?
I mean, there's
I
a
don't
lot of
know.
time to digest it, and maybe it'll be illuminated.
Here's what I'm gonna suggest. Y'all can or may not adopt the draft ordinance that Terry's presented. To me, it's up to y'all if you want to or not. It doesn't have any, it won't, it's basically harmless. And if y'all want to do that because, because it says recitations
My
that Terry wants me to say.
understanding, isn't it just restating what state law says we're required to do?
Yeah, it's just
Well, but
reciting
it gathers
state
it
law
all together
provisions.
on one sheet of
But
paper.
to
Yeah, exactly.
execute it, to adopt an ordinance according to,
All right, but that ordinance doesn't contain the operative language, a survey is hereby adopted.
we'll sit here all night then. We can do it
No,
over the phone.
no,
No,
Point of
we don't need to, we don't need to.
Oh, okay.
Here's what I'm gonna suggest,
we're not
here's what I'm
gonna
gonna
do this
suggest.
here.
You guys think about it.
It's already 8:00.
We have to wait, we still haven't gotten feedback from the engineer. If the engineer comes back and says, here's the sealed version, then we're golden, and now at the next meeting, you guys will consider the adoption of hopefully both. I'm strongly gonna recommend that you look at my ordinance and use that to formally adopt that survey. Right, and I don't wanna hurt your feelings, Terry, but
Yeah, no, I have no
Terry's
feelings.
Terry's ordinance
I've got
doesn't actually,
feelings.
it doesn't contain the language that says this survey is hereby adopted.
Okay. I can add whatever we need to.
But
But before we move on, we still got to approve the budget, approve the bill.
Yeah,
Are
yeah,
you okay,
but,
Terry, pushing this a month?
well, I mean, that was the plan, I thought anyway, so.
Jonathan Blake had a good question for Berman, and I kinda wanted it answered. What do we do with the bubbles?
Well,
I don't know what to do with them.
Okay.
My suggestion is gonna be, you guys let the surveyor figure it out.
We already gave them instruction on that. It's a done deal.
That's regardless. Okay, we can change
Well, they may say
the
that
instruction to
if
them.
the bubbles are on there, we can't put a seal on there.
If they say that,
That's
then we need to know that.
Okay.
And we'll just have to wait and see what they
we're
say.
waiting for that.
We're waiting for
But
that,
if they
Terry, we're
if
gonna
they
go ahead and.
continue, if they continue to say that we cannot support the radiuses, then what do we do, guys?
Well, that's actually, that brings up another point. It's something that I want you guys to think about here, and if the surveyor comes back to us and says, we are not going to seal this survey, you guys then have to make the judgment call as to whether or not you want to adopt it nevertheless. The survey seal is not required for you to determine your boundaries. Right, and so you guys will have to make the judgment call. Now, if they refuse to put a seal on it, you can still adopt it as the official survey and the official map of the town.
It's not required.
The seal itself is not required. But if you reject that and decide not to adopt it, then you're gonna have to make some serious judgment calls after that point, you know? An on-the-ground survey is gonna be incredibly expensive,
We've
or,
been quoted 25,000. Just so you know, we've been quoted 25,000 by this firm. We've spent 17.5 to get where we're at.
for an on-the-ground survey.
Well,
No, that was just- no,
well,
no,
it
we
didn't
did
say
not.
on the ground
No, an underground survey would be quite different.
He said
Their
that they were
boundary
doing
survey, again, the definitions we're mixing here.
Right,
His
they- all
boundary
right,
survey is
Time,
not the
time,
same
stop,
thing.
stop. There's another way that they can do a survey, that's by references to existing deeds that are recorded as a matter of record.
Yeah.
And what they do is they take a look, they pull all the deeds, they look at all the meets and bounds and all the calls in those deeds, and then they come up with a meets and bounds description that is regarded as a survey. It's not an on-the-ground survey, it's a different kind of survey that is still
A legal survey.
a legal survey.
Yes. No difference.
Do you have any issues with the bill?
We got a motion.
We're already at
for that.
7:05.
We're almost there. I had a question, just one second. Simeon brought up the point that if we take off the semicircles, are we taking people out of the town that have already voted and are preparing to vote if we do that?
Or are we adding people to the town?
No, they were
We're not adding
here.
because they were always
They were
there on the
there.
map, and that's the,
Whichever one we
There's been
added.
voters added and taken away.
That's not true.
well,
Also, remind and clarify, this is just, we weren't going all the map. We also were doing it for certain roads. So if you're, if Terry got, I'll just say Terry got his way in
Maybe
going
your phone
just with
being
the
close to
numbers
the
on
pack.
there, would have people taken off
Move it
the
away from the
voter roll
transmitter.
on certain roads, whether the bubbles are considered or not.
It's probably
So I guess we beat this enough for today,
Yeah, I
except for
think
the
so.
bill.
All right, so is there a motion?
motion on the bill?
Well, I was just asking if there's any discussion, any issue with any of this?
No.
Okay, motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jaffe, second by Blake to approve the bill of $3157.50 on this task 104. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. And we will revisit this next month. All right, moving on to number 2. Discuss new pending interlocal agreement with Precinct 2 Commissioner Kelly Lane and Attorney Karen Bagley of Kaufman County for road maintenance. So I asked for a meeting with Commissioner Kelly Lane and Tom Anderson was with me the previous 2 times with Kaufman County in negotiating that. He wasn't able to attend that day, so Mayor Pro Tem Blake came. We met, Attorney Berman was there. We thought it was significant enough to have him there, and I'm glad he was.
I'm not.
Karen Bagley is not the same attorney who worked with Commissioner Barber. I found out that Deborah Bonner resigned, and so that was part of the reason I think they were stacked up, is they were short-staffed perhaps. And so Karen Bagley, she wrote the one that we brought last month. It is only a page and a half. This council decided that you wanted more details, and that's why we did have the meeting with wanting more details. Attorney Berman stated our case very well. We said, hey, our councils, wants more details, and what she said is that they want all of their interlocal agreements to be very similar, and they don't want to deviate from that. Is that in a nutshell, you think?
They have 13 other
Yeah.
towns and cities that.
Yeah.
All right, so, let me, I hate to interrupt.
No, I was going to defer to you anyway.
First and foremost, the agenda item references precinct 2 when it should be precinct 3, but
Whoops.
that error isn't consequential. This is not a math test. The agreement that they have proposed to us, and to clarify confusion that was referenced earlier, it's not the final form agreement that will control all future projects. It's a master agreement. Basically, as projects are done, we will enter into separate agreements on a project-by-project basis with them. This is simply the master agreement, so we don't need to specify in graphic detail all the specifics, because we really can't. The problem that we have is that the agreement that they proposed is similar to the one that we talked about quite some time ago, only it omits a great deal of detail. And they told us that because of their need for uniformity, this is effectively being offered to us on a take it or leave it basis. And we rejected, and the big concern on my part was the fact that there are no cost controls in there. my assumption is gonna be that when they propose a project, it's offered, that would be offered to us with no cost controls. In other words, they may use FEMA rates to determine what the cost of labor and materials are. They may not, but who knows? Our original draft from way back contained those controls. This one does not, and so they're offering this to us on a take it or leave it basis. We can accept it as written, or we can reject it and figure it out on our own. We would have some limited ability to discuss and negotiate the details on a specific project-by-project basis. But I think they gave us this verbal assurance, not a written one, that the same thing that happened the last go-around isn't gonna happen again. We have a different kind of commissioner now, who at least it appears on the outside to be a bit more sympathetic to the town of Poetry. But we have assurances that they'll do the projects that they propose to do on a timely basis and all that kind of stuff. But we have no ability to renegotiate the terms of this. It's take it or leave it. So you either adopt it as written or you don't adopt it. And if you don't, for every project, we are on our own. We go out for competitive bids. If it's over 50 grand, we get estimates. If it's under 50 grand, but we ain't gonna get help from the county on it. Y'all get that. It's unfortunate, and it's, this is our county, and y'all understand that the funds that they're using to do these projects are funds that, among others, our citizens have paid them for, and they're not grasping that concept. They look at it more as an arm's length transaction, and from their perspective, they've got so many projects and so many cities that they need to worry about. We've got limited funding, and I understand all that, but.
Well, but the state law doesn't require that they do this. It says they can.
Yes, they can. They don't
It
have
doesn't
to.
say they have to.
Yes, it
And
does. I read from the interlocal relations, it says, the agreement or contract must specify, one is kind of services, two, the basis for computing reimbursable costs, and then furthermore, it says, coming on down, that it says reimbursement and advancement of costs, an agency, it says, an agency that receives services or resources under the chapter shall reimburse each agency providing the services or resources the actual cost of providing the services or resources, or the nearest practicable estimate of that cost.
Right, but you started out with if we have a contract. If we don't have a contract,
Well, I think, no, I think this is where I was gonna go with this, is my guess is that we should do this in the subcontracts.
And that's what Commissioner Ling basically said. He's gonna give us not a lump sum contract like we were getting. It's gonna be an itemized contract, so
Right.
we know what everything costs and what
Right.
everything is. And
I'm
so
sorry?
we can
is it-
either decide to take that project or not, but I think they were very eager to work with us. We had 5 other people in the
I
office.
think he wants to work with us. I think Bill or David wants to work with us. I don't think they're
They-
obligated to work with us.
That's
No.
the section that it's in right here.
You know, they
When we incorporated, we made a conscious decision to walk away from those tax dollars,
yeah.
even though
Well,
that's not how we were thinking.
Not necessarily.
Well, was there a commitment that the dollars were gonna flow back though?
Well, in Hunt County, the way it works is our tax dollars pay for labor and equipment, and in the previous agreement, it was also, some of our money was going
But
toward
it does that
labor
because they
as well.
agreed to set up that arrangement. They didn't have to.
No,
I
but
mean,
there are many counties who do that they have these agreements with the cities. So, to that point, the project sheets, now I think it's a little more onerous on Mr. Lane to have to do on each project sheet, he has to show exactly the costing, so it's and I actually, you'll see on the next item, I tried to have another project sheet, KO5, for pothole repair on 3 roads, so we can get an example of how he would do it, but he said, and I asked for it last week, he said that he couldn't do that until we have the actual signed agreement.
So I guess the point is, this is gonna be the master agreement.
Right.
And then what we would actually be discussing with them on a detail, if we would choose to, is the actual cost that they would be
The individual project.
Yes.
on the individual
He would have
project.
more detail on
He
that.
said he would provide photos even when he does these.
But no master, no project, so.
But so We're just voting on the master, not the
And
contract.
what
yes.
Karen Bagley said is, look, each project sheet, you can accept it or you can reject it.
Right, well-
If you find that your volunteers can do it cheaper,
Well, Kelly says.
or
if
if you want to
can get
hire someone
material
else, you
cheaper
can.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
We can supply the material, they'll supply the labor and the equipment. He'll work with this. To me, it was a very productive, very good meeting.
Okay, so
But
we're,
they're by board participants, and those are all negotiated prices. They should have
Yeah.
the lowest price.
Yeah, they should, yeah. But he
In
was,
bulk.
But we can
Yeah, it's a
always
bulk
check, I
price.
guess, if someone wants to do that later.
Well, yeah, that's the point, is, you know, if we can come back and say, well, I mean, this is the law, so we have a right to come back and ask for details. But if we think it's reasonable and sounds reasonable, we'll,
so
Go
what's
with
the
it.
will of the council based on it, to take it or leave it? I mean, we either agree to this or we're done.
well, I think we ought to take it
Okay, I think we
as a
ought to-
start.
Motion,
motion to accept it.
And a second.
okay?
Okay, we have a motion by Blake, seconded by Anderson. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. All right. All right, Berman
David,
out.
you can leave.
Thank you,
I'm a
David.
backup. I feel like I'm getting kicked out.
Oh, you wanted to leave earlier.
Just stop the clock and let us all have a break.
Yes, okay, the time is now 8:11. We'll recess for 5 minutes.
Chapter 771 doesn't apply.
I'm sorry?
Chapter 771.
It doesn't apply? Well, going down to the baseball game the 22nd. He likes, guy who eats
Now 8:17.
somewhere. So anyway, he's adapting fine.
All right, okay, we've been waiting several months. We're so happy to have Debbie Taylor of the MCPA give us a presentation on our town annual audit. So,
Good evening, all.
Good evening, thank you for coming.
Here's one formal copy. I have the other one that I'll be looking at.
Y'all have it printed? Okay.
I've got mine.
I won't look online.
So I will just start out by saying thanks for having us again. Teresa and Tara are always very helpful, and we haven't had any issues with, sometimes, you know, you have difficult clients, and we have never had that with Tara and Teresa. They've been very helpful, and just be glad you have them, because there's some groups that are not so helpful. Anyway, I'll just walk you through this report, starting with the second page, which is the table of contents. Just kind of describes each document that's in here. And then move over to the letter, and this is the most important thing. You'll notice in the second paragraph, it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective
Hey.
financial position.
we have a speaker, pardon me, we have a speaker. Please, I need silence in the chamber, please. Thank you.
Anyway, the bottom line is you passed. Your financial statements were presented fairly. I joke that now I could speak in French and no one would care what else I say, because that's the only thing you do. So the rest of the letter is just kind of the auditor's responsibilities. That's on page 3. Page 4 talks about required supplementary information. And then we get into the good part. On page 5, the management's discussion and analysis starts, and we're just gonna talk about the financial highlights on this page. The town's assets exceeded its liabilities by $322,000 plus, which is called your net assets, and that's the good way to have it. You want, I mean, y'all know this, the assets more than your liabilities. The previous year, your net assets were $221,000, so you've increased them by almost $102,000 this year, so that's really good progress. And then your net assets consist of 2 things. The capital assets part of it is $159,000, and the unrestricted is $163,000, which represents your portion available to pay your expenses. Now, I want you to know we added something this year. Part of the balance that's still attributable to your sales tax that you've collected and have not spent yet on your road repairs. So we're gonna start breaking that out
for you, so you know what you have left. And, one thing I will tell you, well, let's get to the revenue section, we'll talk about that. And then, the rest of this portion of this page talks about what the different financial statements are and, how their view is different, what they mean, so you can read that if you would like to. And that would be like government statements versus your fund statements. And page 6 discusses the rest of that. Page 7, just a little more information about the town and some more financial highlights down at the bottom. Now, page 8 is where we get into the good stuff. This is a good, I like this section because it gives you the comparison from the previous year to this year. So you can see how you've increased. And probably, as you can tell, your assets increased by, about 100,000. Your cash went up quite a bit, and your capital assets. Your cash went up because this was your first full year of sales tax. Last year, you had about 9 months with accruals last year. This year's your first full year. And then also what happened with your capital assets is you finished the remodel on this building. And so last year it was not complete, so it was just sitting in like a construction it was mostly complete, Tom. It wasn't completely complete. But, so it was sitting on the balance sheet in a construction in process. So then this year when those last few expenses were paid, then we take all of that and reclass it to your capital assets and we start depreciating it. So that's the biggest change in your capital asset section is what was the net, what was spent this year. Liabilities, you have no debt, yay. And so you just have the portion that we talked about that's invested in your capital assets, which you'll notice is the same number as your assets. And then the unrestricted portion, which includes the remainder of your sales tax funds that you haven't spent. The bottom section is just your income and expenses. Overall, your income went up about $50,000. Again, that's your sales tax that you collected for a full year this year. And then your expenses went up about $30,000, and that is due to your road projects. The increase is due to the more spent on the road projects. Page 9, there's a little bit more detail on your capital assets. You can see your land stays the same. Land is not a depreciable item. And then your building improvements went up to $61,000 this year, which is the total amount that was spent on remodeling this building. And then this year you also have accumulated depreciations that you now have a depreciable asset that started this year. A little bit about your budget and some of your economic factors compared to next year's budget on the bottom page. And then the last page, what to do if you have a question about this report or the information in it. Page 11 gives you more detail on your assets and just a little bit more breakdown. You don't have just a whole lot of line items, so there's not just a big difference between the other pages that discuss it, but just a little bit more breakdown. Same with the next page. It's the same information, just a little bit more detail. Page 13. Short story is we're required to report on the different kinds of financial statements, and these are the governmental funds. Every time there's a difference in governmental funds versus the original balance sheet, there's going to be a reconciliation on the next page that shows you what the differences are. So if you wonder what it is, and the focus is, one of them is long-term, how your net assets have changed, and the other one is what are your short-term resources and where do those go. That's the basic difference. Page 15, again, your income and expenses for governmental funds. Page 16 is the reconciliation of the governmental funds to the statement of activities. And then on page 17 is where the notes to the financial statements start. And I always like to say it like this, the notes to the financial statements are just a narrative description of the previous report's numerical numbers. So it gives you just more information on that, and we'll point out some highlights in here. The first couple of pages are just some information about what type of entity you are, what kind of reporting we do. If you see differences, like for instance, I'll give you sales tax. The differences in the reports you see and the reports you see here is that we prepare these on an accrual basis as required by the AICPA, and you keep your records in a cash basis. So for instance, sales tax, if the government closed today, they would still owe you 2 months sales tax because they pay 60 days later. So that money is yours even though you haven't collected it. So in the accrual statements, we record that during the current fiscal year, not in the year you collected it. That's just kind of a short answer of what the differences are. So on page 19, again, some more detail on what type of statements and the different transaction classes you have. Page 20 is still going, capital assets, long-term obligations, fund equity. And if anybody has questions that go along, please, ask me. If I go too fast or if you want more clarification, let me know. Note 2, compliance and accountability issues. Note 3, deposits and investments. Note 4, receivables. The receivable that you have there is the sales tax accrual that I told you about, that you've already received it as of now, because it's several months past your year end, but that's what that receivable amount is. The note 5, again, is a little bit more detail on your capital assets. Note 6, you don't have any long-term debt. Note 7, you don't have an operating lease. Note 8 is about your insurance coverage. There's some risk management coverage. In note 10, litigation. This is information working with your attorney, but one thing I can tell you from our perspective, what we look at for litigation, is there any chance that your financial statements are at risk for a future judgment? And so that's where it is from our perspective. We don't, comment on the legality of the lawsuit or anything like that. It's just, is there a financial effect to your financial statements? Could there be in the future? Note 11 about subsequent events. We were required from the end of your fiscal year, which was September 30th, to the date we issued the report, which was December 18th, we issued this report. So between September 30th and December 18th, if anything big had happened, say you had a major insurance loss or something like that, we would report that in your subsequent events section so that anyone that was looking at the financial statements would have a full picture of the financial state of the town. And then the last note, other information, is just information on who provides your fire and police, emergency services, how your infrastructure is taken care of, and who provides utilities. Page 25 is your budget versus actual report for the entire year. And that's the last of the report. There's a letter that the board members get that's included too, but that's the last of the actual audit report. All right, yes, sir.
It's kind of a nit, but on the next to last page, it says, these included adjustments too, and these look like little tweaks, I guess, we had to
What
make.
page number, I'm sorry?
It's,
Oh, you're talking about the letter? Are you
I
looking
guess
at
it's
the
in
letter?
the letter.
Page number on this?
Well, it's not, it's a letter,
Okay,
I think.
so it's the next to last page.
It's the 4 bulleted items. I'm just curious, and none of them are significant. I just wondered, I guess it's just little loose ends where something was in the wrong column, or we had
Okay,
to.
good question. All that is like journal entries that we propose to you, that we found this and we propose the journal entries. Teresa made the entry, sent us the balance sheet, and now they're on there. So let's talk about them. I already told you about the sales tax receivable. That's an entry we propose to convert your convert your books from cash basis to accrual, typical report. Reclass the entries. That was part of your CIP, your building remodel was in construction in progress last year, so then we reclass it to fixed assets this year, along with the rest of the expenses to get the total asset cost set up. Reverse legal fees accrued, again, that's entry from last year's audit that we accrued some legal bills that y'all had incurred, but your attorney didn't get them to you until late, so we went ahead and put them on last year's financial statements because they were for that period. So then this year, we have to reverse it because they were paid, so it's a net effect of 0 to the financials. The last one is the same thing, reversing an audit adjustment from last year. So
And that's not that many adjustments. In
It's not-
businesses, I'm used to a whole page of
Right.
adjustments, year-end adjustments, so
And
in
just
financials,
I can tell you from all the audits that we looked at, that is a pretty typical number of adjustments. I mean, you rarely have 2 pages adjustments and you rarely have none. So it's a pretty typical amount.
Very good, thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? And we're free for questions too. If you want to email us questions, you think of something later, we'll be glad to answer it.
We're just glad we passed.
Yeah, we're glad we passed and you're paid.
I
can
quit
speak
listening
French.
after that.
Right? I could have spoken French and you would have never minded. So here's your
Well,
Thank you. Good.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Debbie.
Thanks,
We appreciate
Debbie.
you
Thanks for coming
making
out.
the trip.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
Y'all have a good evening.
You
You
have
too.
you as well. Okay, all right, then we'll move on to number 4.
Well, see, we have to accept it, don't we? You said, listen, don't we have to vote to accept the audit?
Well, I guess we can, it won't hurt to.
I think we did last year.
I think we did.
Yeah,
Okay, you got a motion?
I'm sorry.
Motion to accept the audit as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion by Jaffe, second by Blake, to accept the audit as written. All those in favor? And that passes 5-0. Okay. All right. Number 4, discuss update on prospective Bishop Airfield LLC MUD and relevant legislation.
Well, I guess, start off, last time we'd mentioned that we were doing a lot of investigation, trying to figure out who owns the airfield, because that is an issue. And it was raised again in our meetings in Austin. We were told, you need to know who this is, because we met with 3 representatives and 1 senator, and then we had a discussion over the phone with the TCEQ person who was not at the Capitol that day. She was her awesome. So we had a 45-minute discussion with all that. And then anyway, well, it basically came down to that is the TCEQ understands it's their responsibility to go after them, because there are laws, very specific laws, which we went after, and I've got them here, which says if there is a old abandoned petroleum tank on site, it has to be removed, or if it's not removed, if it's in a place it can't be removed, like under a building, you still have to go in and fill it with inert material, inert like something that doesn't react, and then you have to determine that there are no leaks that have occurred around the site. All this, and this is by law, and I've got the laws here, that all has to be done by approved people. It's not just the owner that can do it. So what I was told, we were told, because we said, well, looking on the CAD, it says, the CAD says that this is owned by the Bishop. There's four sections, and they're all owned by Bishop Airfield Ranch LLC. And this is on the long, narrow strip. Well, we went into the office of the Secretary of State at the suggestion of one of the representatives. He said, go to the Secretary of State, find out who owns that property. So we went there, and we found out that it's owned by, all 4 of those are owned by something called Rogue Holdings Enterprises. And Rogue Holdings Enterprises doesn't list who owns it. It says the manager is Benjamin P. Pogue, who is apparently of Pogue Construction. But anyway, we couldn't find out then who owns Rogue Holdings Enterprises, but I did some looking on Dun and Bradstreet and others, and it's owned by a series of other trusts and other LLPs. In other words, we couldn't take it to an individual. We only could take it to entities, and then those LLPs are owned by other LLPs and trusts. So it's all interconnected, and it seems that originally we'd thought that that Ben Pogue wasn't the main guy. We thought it was
Ray Eckenrode.
Ray Eckenrode. Well, Ray Eckenrode is apparently the one that will be building the houses, but all the property and everything is being driven by Ben Pogue. And he's roughly mid-40s. He's president, CEO of Pogue Construction, which is out of McKinney, and they do primarily, and this is according to their website, commercial buildings. They do schools, football stadiums, hospitals, churches, big jobs like that. And they have offices in both Houston and it's at main offices in McKinney, but they have office in Fort Worth and Houston as well. And so when we got down to this is that we couldn't find an individual, and neither can the TCEQ. They just know it's owned by Rogue Holdings Enterprises, and we don't know who that is, except Dun and Bradstreet had the pictures showing that it all ties back to, in some way, around Ben Pogue, but Ben Pogue isn't shown as the owner. He's shown as a manager of these various. And Ben Pogue, by the way, has probably 30 LLCs or 35 LLCs under his name. And a lot of these are all tied together into this right here. So, in other words, if there's a problem, we're still not sure who to go after. And so, and neither is TCEQ. They don't know who to go after. So the job is not over yet. I've got some more digging to try to find out exactly who owns these different LLCs that all tie back in some ways to the Bishop Fairfield LLC, the four entities that are in the under the old abandoned airfield. And all this goes back to the law, which, I can read it to you, but basically it says, and I know this, by the way, from doing refinery evaluations. I've done them all over the U.S., all over the world, but all over the U.S. You cannot come in where there's an old abandoned petroleum tank without removing it, checking for leaks, doing a pretty extensive survey, and checking for leaks is not just checking into the soil, it's checking into the groundwater. Well, that's what gets it back to poetry, because the law says you got to check to see where it's gone into the soil and groundwater. And in our case, because this is sandy loam soil, that you will get a plume that occurs when you have a leak. The leaks go out, and these are old steel tanks. Steel tanks are notorious for leaking. I worked in a lot of refineries, and oh boy, they accumulate water in the bottom, they leak, and the water goes a long way, and that's why you can't ever build anything on an old refinery site other than maybe a parking lot or something like that, but not housing. So anyway, what it comes down to is that this TCEQ, the person we're now talking with, Elizabeth Vanderwergen in Austin, she grasps it. The people in the Fort Worth office were not really going after it, but she apparently is, and she was one we talked to, and she said they're not going to go away, but her problem now is the legislature, and that they're all tied up in Austin testifying and attending various legislative meetings, which they have to in Austin. So anyway, she said once that's over this summer, then they'll be able to take more action. But in the meantime, she and all of them said, you need to find out who owns this property. So right now, we only know that it's owned by LLCs, which are owned by other LLCs that are all interconnected and seem to come back to Ben Pogue in some way.
Okay.
So, and not to Eckenrode, as far as we can tell. Now, one of the congressmen that we talked to, Keith Bell, I believe it was, said, you really need to know who owns this, because if any of those LLCs are owned by foreign ownership, that even raises the stakes further. So there's some things that could take it further, like who owns it? Is it these LLCs, is it all Ben Pogue, or is it family, or is it trusts, or is it other people, and is there any foreign ownership? And that's also suspicious, because at least a couple of the LLCs have a very unique foreign-sounding name to them, which I haven't run those down yet either, but I'm trying to get everything I can to find out. But the big problem, of course, is if they've leaked, and this is leaded gasoline, and leaded gasoline is considered highly toxic. And not only that, but to get octane requirements for aviation gasoline, have to put a lot of benzene, toluene, xylene aromatics in. That's also highly toxic. And if any of that has gotten out in the plume and gotten to the water table, that could get into Poetry, our town limits. So we can't, this is my view, is we can't let up on this, because we got to find out if it's in the water table and it's gotten into the town limits. We need to know that, because then that's our responsibility. And so we've got to keep pursuing it. And in the meantime, we're not getting a lot of cooperation from the Bishop Field owners, whoever they are. But the TCEQ has said, yes, it has to be done in this proper way, which means they can't just start building houses without doing all this first. So if they try to start building houses, then we have to talk to Mr. Berman about a legal step. But, hopefully we can get all this done and figured out before they start. So it's not an easy thing to run down.
Just out of curiosity, Tara, so as I listen to this, I think back, we signed our agreements for the various counties a while back that said basically they're going to manage our ETJs, right, with regards to subdivisions and development and all of that. They're going to take responsibility for that. So where do you see us long-term in this battle with Bishop Field? I'm as opposed to it as anybody, but I'm trying to figure out and rationalize what the town's responsibility is versus the county versus other people that may have more jurisdiction and right to that area because it's outside of our town limit, right?
Well, the very fact that a 50-foot section comes right into our town for their exit, one of their main exits, does impact our town significantly. So one of their main exits comes right into 2440. Their planned exits, and that will here when we talk to. It's a good question. When we talk to Senator Betancourt's office, Ross Leak was saying, my point was.
He's the CE.
What is his position? Policy advisor, or?
He's the head guy.
Yeah. Okay. So we had to wait for the appointment, but we did that. I said to him, okay, how is it right that one, they're going to build this multi-million-dollar, $120 million project, and yet it's going to affect our roads, and we get no money whatsoever from them at all. How is that right? How is that fair? How is that just? And he said, you have a point. And then the second one, and he deals with all of the issues. He is in the local government, Betancourt is the chair of the local government, which committee which handles all of these MUDs and these issues. And secondly is, how is it right? My question to him was, how is it right that one developer can potentially increase the population of triple to quadruple the size of our population where we don't even have a chance to keep up? How is that right and just? And he those 2 points, I mentioned over the hour meeting we had or whatever, we mentioned several points, but those were the two that he mentioned that he thought were valid points, and that was interesting feedback, I thought. So
just to be fair, they won't be quadrupling our population.
Well, the surrounding areas population, yes. So Poetry would still be 2061 or whatever, but yes, the surrounding population, it would not. Yeah, it would be, if they're going to add 6,000 to 8,000 new residents, it's right on our border. And if it were in our town, we have more of a say, but they're outside of our boundaries. So any
updates on what the other groups that are a part of this are doing? The judge and
Judge Rankin?
Judge Stovall, I don't know.
I know the other judge that was at the Poetry School meeting. Rankin.
Judge Rankin. Like periodically, Stephanie, and I can have her back, periodically, I'm not sure what that group is doing right now. Periodically, I do try and communicate some of these things. I've written several letters. I've written many, many letters to our state legislators trying to, hey, these issues are important. I do have something that I want to share additionally. We had Mayor Billings. I'm on the group in Rockwall County mayors, and they are Mayor Billings has a city manager, so he's focusing a lot of his time on these House bills. So House Bill 363 by Bell and is relating to the notice and petition for the creation of municipal utility district in certain counties. House Bill 638, Tepper, requires certain water districts to make audio and video recordings of open meetings available online. House Bill 363, notification of a proposed MUD to Commissioners Court. That's by our own Keith Bell. House Bill 447, also by Keith Bell. It requires the traffic impact analysis, and this is the one I've mentioned. I think has the most teeth to any of this. House Bill 602, Swanton, requires a MUD director to own land subject to taxation in the district. It's astonishing to me that you don't even have to be in the district to be a MUD director. House Bill 2015 is Weiner, the environmental quality TCEQ to consider water conservation when determining the MUD creation petitions. House Bill 2561 by Pearson relates to the meeting place of a MUD board. They're trying to get it where it's a lot closer. Some of these can be miles and miles away, and nobody can attend because it's, an hour and a half away. House Bill 2561, Katrina Pearson is authored that, relating to the meeting place of the MUD. House Bill 4211, Nobles, is relating to certain residential property interests controlled by certain entities. So what Mayor Billings is trying to do is say, hey, can we roll all these in one? I don't know if that's I don't know if that'll work. I don't know if that'll be, I think what Keith Bell likes to do is hit it piecemeal, and it has a more likely to pass. So, but it is the same chair, Betancourt. Angela Paxton is also on that committee. So, if you want to write letters, they do take into consideration citizens, from what I understand. So, if you look on the Local Government Code Committee, if you go online, look at the Senate committee, it'll tell you all the members of that, and it's going on right now, and now is the time. Senator Betancourt, I know Angela Paxton's on there, and I think there's a total of 7, but, and that would, you can write letters to them. I do have a chart. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to grab that real quick. I thought this was pretty pertinent. This is a chart showing the number of taxing jurisdictions. So you can see in this red-orange color is the counties. So this is 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. So you can see counties is pretty much, the number has stayed the same over all these years. The green is ISDs. Additionally, it has stayed pretty steady for all those years. The purple is cities. It has pretty much stayed steady. The teal blue here is the special districts. They have exploded across the state in the last 5 years. So I thought that was just really interesting
So that's a
information.
special utility district?
The special utility
And
districts.
a water department can be a SUD?
A SUD, a MUD, a PID.
So it's not all MUDs?
No, it's a combination.
It could be a water district.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be a SUD, a MUD, a PID. I think there's a couple others. And then this is a chart based on that. So that's showing all of the special districts have, and even school districts, I guess, have gone down as they've consolidated. Anyway, I thought it was pertinent information. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so anyway, Tom has a notebook, like a couple notebooks this high, working hard on it. 3 notebooks, he said. All right, this is front and center. I believe this is, our citizens don't want high-density development. They've told me that over and over and over. This is on our border. I think it does affect our area. We are trying to do what we possibly can to fight this on all levels.
And I guess the big thing that makes it relevant, and this I got from a company in Tyler that does the testing for when I do gasoline station removals and all, is that he said they've got one here they were working on in Tyler that where it got into the water table. He said, boy, when it gets in the water table, that goes a long way. And so he said, that's the big one. If it's in the water table, it could be in poetry and everywhere else, so you need to know. So anyway, we do need to know, whatever else happens.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tom, for keeping on top of that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on. That was just discussed. The Hunt County project sheet, H21, number 5.
Motion to approve. Second.
Whoa,
Whoa.
no.
It's $100.
I get it, but it's got the wrong number on here.
What do you mean?
It's 24, agenda's right, the H21's wrong, it's 2430.
Oh, it says 2330. Okay. All right,
Just so
little
everybody
correction.
on this council knows, when you cast this vote, this is my road. I asked David Monroe what it cost to blade the road and cut the trees, and then I asked her if she had any other road requests submitted, and this is the only one that made it, so I'm guessing not. So just so
Yeah.
everybody knows.
Yep.
I did drive around. No.
$100, okay.
Yeah.
Motion with the amendment to 2430. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jaffe, seconded by Blake. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay. I did drive the roads.
Now you
and I
can get
just,
here quicker.
yeah.
This road will be smoother.
All right, number 6, I think I mentioned before, on the project sheet K05, Commissioner Lane said that he couldn't give me a quote until we actually had the ILA. Now that we've approved that, we can take the paperwork. We'll have to have it signed and sealed, and then hopefully he can get us that back, but of course it would have to wait until next meeting.
What is Green Meadow? That came up earlier, and have we done a bunch of work on that road, or is that a regular?
Yeah, Green Meadow is a Kaufman County road. It's, periodically the volunteer team hits it. It needs some more work, and so to get,
Is it a dead end, or is it a through road? or-
It's a dead end.
Okay.
Well, yeah, has a little circle. Circular, yeah. Okay, so 7, discuss allowing the volunteer team additional $2,000 in material costs for asphalt repairs as needed between county repairs. So I did include a spreadsheet for you to show what we have, full disclosure, transparency. We've, showing everything that we have spent. Now, I did this last Friday. I think I just paid another bill today, and one of you signed it. I think you signed it. So that was an additional $770 off of that. So we have, basically $1,100 left from here. So we need additional money to handle some of these things, especially if it's going to be in a whole nother month before we can get an itemized project sheet from Kaufman
Make
County.
a motion, we accept it.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Anderson, second by Blake. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay, number 8, amend minutes from August 24th to correct the voting record. This is brought by Councilmember Fowler, and what you got?
Yeah, it's just real quick, a regular agenda, number 1, the motion passed 4-1, Fowler opposed. Just making a correction to the minutes.
Okay, and which one?
Tell me again, it was what the number was?
Regular agenda item number 1, the vote passed 4-1, Fowler opposed.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't catch it the first time.
We didn't have to make a motion to.
We need, yeah, we do,
'Cause it's been
so,
passed. So I'll make a motion that we amend the minutes, what is it? I done put it away. Amend the August 15th, 2024 minutes.
Second.
okay, we have a motion by Fowler, seconded by Blake. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay, moving along. Okay, number 9, discuss moving the May regular meeting to Tuesday, May 13th to allow the canvass of the election to be held during the appropriate window of time. So, as you know, the election is May 3rd. The following week, they typically have to spend time, of course, securing the overseas ballots. And so, just from history, I know that it usually takes them a good week. before they give us any data. So originally I wanted to do it the week, the Thursday the week before, but then I was like, no, they don't have, a lot of times they don't have the information. So, and the deadline is actually May 14th. Our meeting was originally scheduled, it's originally May 15th. So if we just move it 2 days, we'll be in that window instead of having to do a whole nother meeting. So,
Motion to move to the 13th.
Second.
okay, we have a motion by Blake, second by Anderson. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay, number 10. So this was one that I think Berman did for us a couple years ago, brought it back, just because it's that time. To discuss the oath of office ordinance, and it basically, it's the same as what we did last time, but it adds a statement. It says, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of blank, whether it's council member or mayor, of course, that gets written in, and will do the best of my ability to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state, and the laws and ordinances of the town of Poetry, Texas, so help me God. So a lot of cities will do that where they add in the ordinances of their town. And so I'm giving the council another opportunity to do that if they so choose.
I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah. Motion to accept it.
Second.
We have a motion to accept by Blake, seconded by Anderson. All those in favor? Okay. And that passes was that 5-0? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, number 11, discuss swearing-in ceremony for Saturday, May 31st, 2025 at 5 p.m. I think Secretary Teresa had said she originally was trying to do it on Friday, May 30th, but then our sound guy, he works, so he has a job, and to get off early to set up all the equipment is a lot. So that's Saturday at 5, I think. In previous years, we've had it.
Yeah, that's the one we
at
have
5.
out front here where we.
I guess it would be one of the secretaries would swear everybody in.
Dorothy did it last time.
So then the new council would take effect to the July meeting.
June meeting. Yes, so they said be sworn in on May 31st, and then the June meeting, they would be in office, yes.
Can we not swear them in on May 13th?
No.
Why?
They're not done canvassing at that point?
I thought that's what we was voting on.
Well, we
the
have to
election.
turn it in, so we have a regular, we have a regular meeting that night, and so we have to turn it in, and then, or you're saying you don't want to have a ceremony, you would just want to have
I'm just asking if we can't
Well,
swear them in.
I thought last time we just swapped, Brian got up, we thanked him, gave him a plaque.
Well,
and
no, we
Brian
had,
could sit down.
it's not on the night of the canvas, though, because night of the canvas is a regular council meeting, and we just count the votes. There's a lot of paperwork that has to be done, so it would be impractical to, and the swearing-in ceremony is a whole nother, ceremony. That's where, last time we had Dr. Horan come and talk and give a speech. We had,
But I thought that whoever wins the seats is in effect after the canvas, right?
no, not until they're sworn in.
Okay.
And generally, you do have a pause. So you canvass it, you check it twice, there's a lot of paperwork again. And so the swearing-in ceremony is when they take their oath of office, and then that's when it's done.
Can I ask a question real quick? Do we, since the election period is done until June, can we hold that prior to June?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We're just there for all the
Yeah,
paperwork.
And so Teresa, Teresa's taking the lead since she's not, she's more new. So I'm letting
If someone
Teresa take the
misses the
lead.
ceremony, is the secretaries going to swear them in?
Yeah, they can do that.
They can do
Yeah.
that, they can do that another time,
Yeah,
but,
okay.
yeah.
I just want to make sure,
Yeah.
because we're setting a date and speaking for people that may or may not be here.
Are you gonna be able to make it with your schedule?
I don't know.
Okay.
But I can step in your office, you can
Yes.
swear me in according to the
Okay.
election law.
So we're gonna do a swearing in out here on the 31st, and then the June meeting is
It's
when
the new
people
council.
sit down if there's any new people.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, well, I make a motion, we accept and move to the 31st. I'm okay.
Okay.
You almost did it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Anderson, second by Blake, to accept the swearing-in ceremony for Saturday, May 31st, 2025 at 5 p.m. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Okay.
So the Friday before that is a Memorial Day weekend, isn't it?
Right, which is why we, oh, you're saying, I thought it was the weekend before that.
Is it the one before that?
I have to look at that. I don't know, I know that's, I was just following Teresa's lead on that one. She wanted to do the 30th, but then
Well, yeah,
Memorial Day weekend, okay, so Memorial Day falls on that 26th.
The prior weekend.
Yeah, the 26th.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's,
So,
prior-
yeah,
that's
so-
why we didn't do it the 24th. Yeah,
Right.
okay, it's all coming back.
People.
All right,
Yes.
so the time is now 9:01. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.